Castle of Black Iron. By Drunken Tiger. Chapter 371, An Old Friend. Zharam's struggles irritated one of the students from Hidden Dragon Palace who was escorting him. Therefore, he knocked onto Zharam's head with the handle of his long sword. At sight of this, Zhang Tai sped up and stopped him. Wait, senior brothers. Arg, junior brother Zhang Tai. The two students immediately revealed smiles at the sight of Zhang Tai coming towards them. As the two students had assaulted Bluestone Pass together with Zhang Tai several days ago, they had a deep impression of Zhang Tai. Additionally, as Zhang Tai was growing famous as the demon-killing Javelin Lord, not to mention that Zhang Tai was already well known when he was in Hidden Dragon Palace, and because of his all-purpose medicament, he was ranked first on the Hidden Dragon wealth list. Hidden Dragon Palace was the place where the clan elites of Huayuan Palace cultivated themselves. Nobody in Hidden Dragon Palace was an idiot. They all knew the importance of human relationships. Therefore, they were very polite to Zhang Tai and didn't look like senior brothers at all. At sight of Zhang Tai, Zharam looked a bit excited. After recovering his composure, he threw his glances towards his partners to appease them. Senior brothers, may I inquire as to what these people have done? Zhang Tai asked. Due to the event in Heaven's Cold City, many peripheral forces and those who dream of money want to sneak into the refugee camp. When they get a chance, they would further slip into Heaven's Cold City. We've caught a lot of people like these guys. Hearing his words, Zhang Tai finally let out a sigh. They truly had caught a lot of people like that these days. Most of them were looking for money in Heaven's Cold City. Whereas, as they were not bad guys, after being caught, they would only be punished by doing hard labor or a few days. Zhang Tai smiled. Without making any explanation, he directly took off the piece of cloth from Zharam's mouth in front of two senior brothers. Zhang Tai. Zharam called Zhang Tai's name at once. After that, he peered at his partners who were also bound. The two senior brothers then exchanged glances with each other and became a bit surprised. You know them, junior brother? They are my friends. Can you let me deal with them? Zhang Tai asked. Haha, now that they are your friends, they are yours now. It's not a big deal, just deal with them at your will, junior brother. Thanks, senior brothers. You're welcome, junior brother. The two students from Hidden Dragon Palace then directly undid their ropes. After chatting with Zhang Tai for a while, they finally left. There were 3 more people that were caught together with Zharam. After being set free, they all hurriedly moved their arms to relax themselves. At the same time, the other 3 guys started to glance over Zhang Tai out of curiosity. Why are you here? Zhang Tai and Zharam exchanged glances with each other and asked the same question in Hebrew in unison. They then burst out laughing at the same time. It's not convenient to talk here, come with me. Zhang Tai looked at them and brought them into his own tent. Zharam and the other 3 guys didn't speak, instead, they just followed Zhang Tai and his arrangement. Zhang Tai's tent was not large and would be a bit crowded with 5 people living in. However, it's okay for 5 of them to sit inside and talk. After entering the tent, they evidently looked relaxed. After looking at the heavy chain-type armor plate and the symbol on it, one partner of Zharam's eyes brightened up at once as he said in Chinese, Huayuan Palace. Zhang Tai smiled as he let them sit down. Zharam's partners included a thin old man, a tall and muscled tough man and a 40-odd-year-old guy with short brown hair who looked shrewd, who could speak Chinese. Because Zhang Tai didn't know Zharam could speak Chinese, he directly chatted with them in Hebrew in case of trouble. Mr. Zharam, why are you here? Zharam revealed a smile. I'm not a teacher now. Soon after you left Black Hot City together with Iron Blood Camp, I had resigned and left Black Hot City. After that, I traveled to Arms, a mercenary empire in the Blacks and Human Race corridor. A few days later, I joined Thor Mercenary Group. This time, we are here in Jinyun country for 2 tasks. Oh, how about you? Why are you here? Since Zharam left Black Hot City shortly after me, it indicates that he didn't know what happened to me since then. Therefore, Zhang Tai briefly talked about what happened to him after Black Hot City. Hearing Zhang Tai's experiences, not only Zoram, even the other three partners of him kept sighing with feeling. Zhang Tai's experience was really legendary, rendering meritorious service on the battlefield for Iron Blood Camp, fought the secret police in Norman Empire, having a warrant issued by the Norman Empire, being picked up to Jinyun country by Huayuan Palace, being involved in the event in Heaven's Cold City. Given his current look, Zhang Tai seemed living a well-off life. Zoram then recalled that teenager in the survival training in Wild Wolf Valley 1 year ago and became thrilled inside as he felt that fate was really marvelous. "You are in Huayuan Palace now?" Zoram asked. "Yes, I was here to attend the action of assaulting Heaven's Cold City arranged by Huayuan Palace." After exchanging glances with the other three guys, Zoram looked hesitated. At sight of Zoram's look, Zhang Tai had known that they needed his help. "What can I do for you?" Zhang Tai asked straightforwardly. "Can you take us to Heaven's Cold City? As Heaven's Cold City has been surrounded by some big clan's forces in Jinyun country, we cannot even enter by airship. Commoners like us could hardly enter." Zoram took a deep breath as he looked at Zhang Tai seriously. "How long will you stay in Heaven's Cold City?" "Only a few hours if it's smooth. We know a batch of city guards of Zhen clan has been controlled by puppet worms. We need a couple of demonized guards." "Do you need to take them away?" "No need." Zoram waved his head as he pointed at a thin old man and introduced him to Zhang Tai. "This is Professor Simon. He's a demon biologist and the chief legal examiner and coroner in Thor Mercenary Group. We only need to hand the demonized guards to him and let him finish the anatomy. After gaining the information that we need, we will leave." Hearing Zoram's explanation, Zhang Tai understood at once. During this period, many demonized guards had been taken away by the 6 clans of Jinyun country and various foreign powers. Zhang Tai had also participated in a task of capturing demonized guards. Commoners could not figure out the function of those demonized guards at all. However, those powers could gather quite a bit of useful information from a demonized guard. The most important information was when the eggs of the parent puppet worm started to live in the host's brain. Because the city guards of the Zhen clan in Heaven's Cold City were the most powerful force of the Zhen clan. Additionally, they always stayed in Heaven's Cold City, which meant that they would not cause eggs to die due to being a long distance away from the parent puppet worm. Instead, eggs could grow well in their brains. Therefore, by studying these specimens, they could confirm when the Zhen clan had started to place the eggs of the parent puppet worm in the water supply system of Heaven's Cold City. As long as they confirmed this time, they would be able to deduce lots of information. For those big powers, this time was of great significance and was the basis for big figures to make major decisions about the Holy War in the future. Huayuan Palace had also taken away more than 40 demonized guards from Heaven's Cold City, many of which were even senior military officers in the city guards of Heaven's Cold City. After getting these specimens, Huayuan Palace handed them to professionals from Huayuan Palace for anatomy. After that, they would be burned directly. "How many of you want to go there? Only 4 of you, or are there more?" The moment he confirmed their target, Zhang Tai didn't waste time as he asked straightforwardly. "We have some more partners, but they are in the airship. Therefore only 4 will be going." "Well, wait for me for a moment, I will prepare something for you." After saying this, Zhang Tai stood up. "What weapons do you need?" "It's very dangerous in Heaven's Cold City now." "I need a longsword." Zoram replied. "I need a war axe of 50 to 100 kilograms. The tall tough man said. "Give me a long spear." "I want them to stay away from me." The one with short brown hair answered. "For me?" Professor Simon shrugged his shoulder and gave a bitter smile. "I have no fighting strength. Just give me a lighter one." Hearing their requests and glancing at them, Zhang Tai turned around. After opening the tent, he walked out. Chapter 372, A Tough Task. The moment Zhang Tai left the tent, the other 3 guys had thrown weird glances towards Zoram. "Zoram, I never would have imagined that you could have such a student. You didn't mention it before." That tough man said. "But I didn't even know that he was here, Jordan." Zoram shrugged his shoulder. You heard that just now. When I left Black Hot City, he was in Kalar. Several minutes ago, I still thought that he was in the Ironhorn army of the Norman Empire. I would never have guessed that I could meet him here. This teenager is not weak. Narrowing his eyes, Professor Simon added, I smelt something related to death from him. This set of heavy chain-type plate armor is nice. Zaziz, this is the best heavy chain-type plate armor produced by Huayuan Palace in Jinyun country. Except for its heavy weight, this is definitely a non-rune equipment that combines defensive capability and flexibility in the perfect way. Batlik's mercenary army tried to counterfeit such a batch of heavy chain-type plate armor for its middle and senior-level officers. However, their fake goods could never match this original, although at almost the same cost. They finally stopped that plan. As the man in short brown hair said that, he touched the chain-type movable metal protective covering over Zhang Tie's armor, which was tightly connected. Meanwhile his eyes gleamed. Zoram, your student might have a high position in Huayuan Palace now. Otherwise, he couldn't get such expensive equipment. It is worth at least 100 gold coins. With him, we could easily finish our task in Heaven's Cold City. Oh, what about his current fighting strength? I've been observing him, but I failed to figure it out. I don't know either. When I left Black Hot City last year, he was LV4. I think he might be LV5 now. After thinking for a while, Zoram added, this youngster is cultivating Iron Blood Fist and had formed Iron Blood Hidden Strength 1 easily. He's the most excellent student that I've taught. LV5? He might have formed Iron Blood Converted Strength 2, but he's 18 years old at most. Jordan said. Perhaps? Zoram nodded with feelings. I didn't know that he was a descendant of Count Longwind. His parents were all commoners in Black Hot City and didn't look special at all. Many clans' ancestral bloodlines and special genes could be expressed through atavistic heredity. His ancestor is Count Longwind, who should be at least LV15. Only very powerful knights would be conferred with titles of nobility. In such clans, some descendants might probably have talents in cultivation. Professor Simon concluded in an authoritative way. We can also ask him about all-purpose medicament. I was told that all-purpose medicament had appeared in Huayuan Prefecture. He must know more than us about that. Our boss paid high attention to this matter. Before we set out, he even especially ordered us to contact the alchemist who could produce all-purpose medicament in Huayuan Prefecture, even though we failed the task in Heaven's Cold City. Zoram nodded as he started to frown. After the event in Heaven's Cold City broke out, prices of medicament started to surge across Blackson human race corridor. Many people started to stockpile all kinds of medicament. As a result, the source and supply of medicament became tense at once. Now, not only Thor mercenary army, even super-powerful mercenary armies such as Batlik's, Huge Snake, Green Highland and the Steel and Iron Alliance in arms had started to be short of various medicament. They were all thinking about a solution. If all-purpose medicament that appeared in Huayuan Prefecture was really more effective than preliminary antidote potion as was said, it would help arms a lot. Within the territory of arms, poisonous substances exist almost everywhere. Therefore, people there need a lot of preliminary antidote potion each year. But due to the shortage of supply of various medicament, preliminary antidote potion was in short supply. For the lack of the other medicament, they might find other solutions. For arms, which was located in the Long Snake God Mountain and was surrounded by endless smog and marshes. As long as preliminary antidote potion was in short supply, it meant many people would die every day due to various reasons. All-purpose medicament was like a bright light in the darkness. For all the mercenary armies in arms, a medicament that was more effective than preliminary antidote potion and could substitute the other medicament was definitely like a heavy rain after a long drought. For those mercenaries who lived in arms and lived using their sabers and swords, all-purpose medicament was definitely the best choice. More than 98% of functions that common mercenaries needed in preliminary antidote potion or low-rank medicament were contained in such a vial of medicament, such as detoxification, curing wounds, intensifying spiritual energy, accelerating the recovery of wounds, improving various physical functions and curing various diseases, including chronic diseases without any side effect. Therefore, before they set out for Jinyun country, the boss of Thor mercenary army emphasized that they had to contact the alchemist who produced this all-purpose medicament. It would be better if the alchemist could provide a batch of the all-purpose medicament for Thor mercenary army every year. The news that all-purpose medicament appeared in Huaiyuan prefecture was passed from Jinyun country to Arms by pioneers. When it reached Arms, the message had become obscure. Therefore, hearing this news, everybody there thought it must be an alchemist who could produce all-purpose medicament and probably be a well-known senior alchemist. Because only a well-known senior alchemist might solve the problem that had puzzled the world of alchemists for hundreds of years. The news of all-purpose medicament influenced Arms more than any other places. In a few days after Arms received the news of all-purpose medicament, the event in Heaven's Cold City broke out. Therefore, the boss of Thor mercenary army assigned some reliable fighters to Jinyun country. At that moment, Zoram only joined Thor mercenary army for a short period. But his shrewd brain and fighting strength had won the favor of the management of Thor mercenary army. Therefore, he also came here as a director of the mission while the other director of this mission was in the airship. It was really a surprise for Zoram to meet Zhang Tai here. If he could complete the mission in Heaven's Cold City in such a dangerous situation, his position in Thor mercenary army would be greatly improved and consolidated. However, thinking of that mission on all-purpose medicament, Zoram became a bit worried. As long as they came to Huaiyuan prefecture, Zoram was confident to contact with the alchemist who could produce all-purpose medicament. Although Thor mercenary army was trivial in Jinyun country, after all, it had more than 60,000 mercenaries, which meant it was an influential power in Arms and the northern region of Blackson human race corridor. Therefore, that alchemist could not refuse to meet them. However, to tell the truth, Zoram lacked confidence in establishing a trading relationship with that alchemist and persuading him to provide a lot of vials of the all-purpose medicament for Thor mercenary army each year. Even though Thor mercenary army had been prepared for a very high purchasing price, Zoram was still not sure whether he could make that. After all, it was all-purpose medicament, not stones and mining pits. If medicament could be easily produced on a mass scale, Arms and the whole Blackson human race corridor would not lack medicament at all. Additionally, it was said that the other mercenary armies in Arms also assigned people in Jinyun country with the same goal as Thor. This increased the difficulty of that task for Zoram. Could he really realize mass production of all-purpose medicament? Thinking of that tough mission, Zoram asked Professor Simon. It's possible. But I don't know the exact possibility. Simon shook his head. Theoretically, an all-purpose medicament is a super enzyme. According to the forming principle of an enzyme, its fermenting process could realize mass production. However, as I have no relevant intelligence, I'm confused about the producing process of all-purpose medicament in Huaiyuan prefecture. It might require something special and precious. Therefore, it depends. Hopefully, the god of mercenaries could bring some good luck to Thor. Zoram revealed a bitter smile. We will finish the task in Heaven's Cold City first, then, we will think about the all-purpose medicament. As you say. Now, various medicaments started to be in short supply. Only in a couple of days, the prices of various medicament in the market in Arms had risen by at least 20%. Some medicament were even shorter supply. We're not the only party that's focused on procuring the all-purpose medicament. Even if that alchemist could realize mass production of the all-purpose medicament, it's still difficult for us to gain more shares than our opponents. For the second mission, old Simon became a bit pessimistic. The influence of Thor mercenary army was well reflected here near Heaven's Cold City. A mercenary army of fewer than 100,000 people was only a trivial group for many big powers and figures. Even though they were here, they were not even qualified to enter Heaven's Cold City to have a look, not to mention others. 1. Iron Blood Hidden Strength. With no movement physically, the fighter could hold back the opponent's attack through inner strength. However, if the opponent covered the point where the fighter released his hidden strength, the latter would not able to release his hidden strength. 2. Iron Blood Converted Strength. Like Iron Blood Hidden Strength, with no movement physically, the fighter could hold back the opponent's attack through inner strength. However, being different from Iron Blood Hidden Strength, even if the opponent covered the point where the fighter released his hidden strength, the latter could still release his hidden strength facing the opponent's attack. However, through displacement of skeletons, the fighter could take preemptive while changing the direction of his strength. Chapter 373, A Bloody City. Zhang Tai came back in only 5 minutes with 4 suits of field fighting clothes like that he was wearing. Meanwhile, he was carrying the weapons of the 4 people, a dagger, a long sword, a long spear and a double-edged huge axe of more than 50 kilograms in one hand. These clothes were chosen in line with your frames. Put them on and take your weapons. Then, we can set out. Zharam and his partners were so surprised as they hadn't imagined that Zhang Tai could deal with these things in such an efficient way. Without any hesitation, they then took their own clothes and started to change them as soon as possible. After Professor Simon took off his pants, Zhang Tai found a leather toolkit over this emaciated old man's calf, which contained various tools like a lance and small hooks. With these items, he could almost finish surgeries. Zhang Tai then knew that his senior brothers must not have meant to search him judging from his emaciated look. Therefore, they didn't notice the toolkit over his calf. When they were changing clothes, Zharam introduced his other 2 partners to Zhang Tai. The taller guy is Jordan, as a squadron leader of Thor mercenary army, he's LV8 and the one with the highest fighting strength among us. According to the military establishment of arms, Jordan is a captain. Although mercenary armies were different than regular armies on establishment, it was still clearly divided into fighting units. In arms, mercenary armies could be divided into team, corps, squad, detachment, group, league and column, which almost equal to that of class, platoon, company, camp, regiment, brigade and division respectively in many human countries' armies. Zharam came here with the other 8 people as a standard team in a mercenary army. However, except for Professor Simon, the other 8 were all above LV6. Such a team was qualified to be called luxury in a mercenary army. The guy with brown short hair is Shrek, the only one among us who can speak Chinese. LV7, a senior scout in Thor mercenary army. He has a deep insight and is very agile. He's excel at spying and street battle in city. Gazing at this luxury team, Zhang Tai didn't have any special feeling. By comparison, when he was in Black Hot City, he and his elder brother both dreamed of being LV6 fighters. However, Zhang Tai abruptly found that he didn't all those fighters below LV10 anymore. In Zhang Tai's eyes, except for some LV9 guys who might bring him some trouble, most of the fighters were nothing different than soldiers below LV5 as Zhang Tai could solve them with only one javelin or a punch. After these days of fighting against demonized people, Zhang Tai had been able to apply his Iron Blood Fist in a much more eye-catching way. Gradually, he could use his Iron Blood Fist as unrivaled as that used by the first emperor of the Norman Empire, which shocked the blacks in human race corridor. After a short while, the 4 guys had put on their field combat clothes. Additionally, they had put on the hat being connected to the field combat coat and had pulled down the respirator, which was filled with soft activated carbon. The respirator could filter fresh air, resist coldness, and hide their faces, only exposing their eyes. After that, they took their own weapons. Is this okay? Zharam asked carefully. No problem. Some elites of Hurricane Army are still surrounding Heaven's Cold City. As the soldiers of Hurricane Army are from everywhere, including all human races, if you just follow me, nobody would ask anything. Zhang Tai answered confidently. Zharam then nodded. Thor mercenary army owes you. Zhang Tai revealed a smile. Due to various reasons, big figures don't want to expose too much information to commoners about the coming holy war. However, I feel that the more people know about it in advance, the better. After they know about it, at least they would not be easily pushed to the front line to be fodder ashes. If not, they might even not know how they were killed. Your thinking is very special. Professor Simon glanced at Zhang Tai. Few people in a big clan would consider it this way. Zhang Tai shrugged. Perhaps it's because I lived at the bottom of society, I know more about commoners. In holy wars, if the front line was broken, it would be very dangerous. Rich and powerful people would then escape by airships, leaving those innocent commoners to be killed by demons. Those commoners won't even have a chance to escape. I feel this is unfair. If commoners could know more about this in advance, they would have more time to prepare for escape. Members in Thor mercenary army are all dauntless, instead of cowards who only think about escape. If there's a chance, I will kill those abominable demons with my axe. Weighing his axe, Jordan said in a low voice. Although you are fighters, you also have family members and friends, who were not all fighters. If you were told that Demon's army would launch an attack towards arms 1 year later, would you lead your family members and friends to fight together with you in arms? If you know that Black's inhuman race corridor might be covered by demons in 2 years, would you lead your family members and friends to escape to a safe place first? If you know that the Holy War would break out in half a year, would you let your family members stockpile food and drinks? Jordan then became quiet. Hearing Zhang Tie's words, Zoram nodded inside as he seemed seeing the same diligent and tough teenager in the survival training in Wild Wolf Valley and the handsome boy who didn't slash towards his opponent who had already lain on the duel platform. During the past 1 year, many things and people had changed. However, that teenager was still kind inside. Kurlan might also be proud of having such a student if he knew that. Zoram mumbled inside. The other guys in the tent started to consider Zhang Tie's questions. Zhang Tai didn't talk anymore. Instead, he carried that heavy metal container of 9 bolts inside which had been used to kill so many people these days and opened the tent. Let's go. The other 4 people then followed him out. After being several hundred meters away from the camp, they came to the wild, from where they could already see Heaven's Cold City in the distance. On the way from the camp to here, although many people had noticed the 4 people after Zhang Tai, nobody asked about them. This place is 15 kilometers away from Heaven's Cold City. It would take a long time to get there if we just walk like this. How fast is your marching speed? Zhang Tai asked Professor Simon considering his age. Although I'm not a fighter, at least I'm a LV5 soldier. I can keep jogging there for 1 hour. Professor Simon said proudly. That's fine. Follow me then. In order to save time, I will choose a route with fewer demonized people. Remember, unless you chop off their heads or break their whole body or head into pieces by destroying their brain tissues, can you kill them? Zhang Tai reminded them once again. Everybody else then nodded. After that, with Zhang Tai's guidance, they started to jog towards Heaven's Cold City. On the way, they met many other teams, the sizes of which varied from 3 to 5 people, dozens of people to over 100 people. They came from everywhere. Some of them were the unrivaled cavalries from Taishur clan, some were elite troops from Huayuan Palace, some were some healthy adolescents recruited from the refugee camp. They scattered outside Heaven's Cold City to hunt those demonized people that ran out of the city, then collect, burn, or bury them. After encountering so many teams, Zoram's group started to understand that without Zhang Tai, they could hardly get close to Heaven's Cold City even if they were not arrested in the refugee camp. At this time, Zhang Tai's heavy metal container of 9 bolts on his back had almost become his symbol on the battlefield, as anyone who caught sight of Zhang Tai dared not to find trouble for him. Instead, many teams even exclaimed out of excitement when they saw him. Mia emotion mo. Mia emotion mo. Except for Shrek, none of Zoram's group spoke Chinese. Therefore, when they saw a team yelling towards them, they were even a bit nervous and thought they might have trouble. However, after seeing this several times, they started to understand that they were exclaiming towards Zhang Tai. Shrek, what are they yelling? Jordan asked behind Zhang Tai while panting. They were yelling a slogan. Shrek then looked at Zhang Tai calmly. That slogan means marvelous demon-killing javelins. They might be yelling towards Zhang Tai. Is that a praise or honor for Chinese? Jordan asked surprisingly. Shrek didn't know how to answer about this question. Because of the cultural difference between Chinese and them, it's hard to explain. In Chinese, the word and always contained dozens of meanings, such as referred to demon, ghost, evil, darkness, villain, malice, inhumanity or difficulty in comprehend while referred to marvel, holiness, deity, creator, fantasy, wonder even one's spiritual awareness. In Hebrew-spoken regions, if a fighter was received an honor, it would be very significant. Because people could never gain any honor without any performance. Additionally, according to the conventions in this age, like being conferred with a title of nobility, a fighter has to gain his honor through fighting with demons. Additionally, honors always had fixed patterns, were always composed of the place where one made a meritorious deed plus his performance or feature, noun. Observably, they were not yelling an honor, neither a eulogy, it should be something between two of them that only existed under Chinese cultural background. When Shrek scratched his head, Zhang Tai, who was ahead of them, opened his mouth. That's not an honor, neither an official and holy eulogy. You can take it as an appreciation and praise, just like some of your nicknames. Like I am called Steel Axe in Thor Mercenary Army, right? Jordan asked out of curiosity. Just like that. However, only a few people in Thor Mercenary Army know me. Nobody knows my nickname on the outside. But it seems that so many people know your nickname. Jordan became a bit depressed and admirable. This tough man is cute. Zhang Tai then revealed a smile. That's because your nickname is not loud enough or special. If you try harder and go to the extremes when you use your axe on the battlefield, such as speed, I will give you a nickname then. I'm sure that more people would know you by then. Arg? What nickname? Black Cyclone. Zhang Tai joked. It was really out of Zhang Tai's imagination that Jordan became spirited after thinking for a while. Seriously, fine, that's it, Black Cyclone sounds cooler than Steel Axe. Shrek, Zaram, you can call me Black Cyclone from then on. 1 hour later, they had successfully arrived in the suburban area of Heaven's Cold City after only meeting 10 more common demonized people. Before Zhang Tai moved, Jordan, who wanted to show his qualification as Black Cyclone, had chopped them all into pieces in a split second. When they arrived at the suburban area of Heaven's Cold City, everything became different. It was already past 9 a.m. when the sun had already risen up. The temperature over the land was gradually increasing, causing a terrifying, suffocating, and disgusting stink to drift from inside Heaven's Cold City. When they were about 1 kilometer away from the city, Zaram and the other guys' faces instantly turned pale when they smelt this. Although there were nothing strange about this odor in the morning breeze, they had not met such a heavy odor before. Even Zhang Tai, who didn't pull down his breathing mask on the way here, had also pulled it down at this moment in order to ease its stimulation. How many people were killed here? Professor Simon turned and asked. They are not human, they are demonized people. From July 7th to now, we've killed at least 100,000 demonized people within 1 kilometer of the 4 city gates. Zhang Tai answered in a low voice. Now, there are still over 1 million demonized people in Heaven's Cold City. We can hardly clean their corpses. Our men only controlled a part of regions near the 4 city gates. After killing them, we will maintain the city gates so that living could still escape out of there. As long as the over 1 million demonized people continued under the guidance of the parent puppet worm, they could easily shock 2 common human armies. Additionally, as Langi Prefecture was relatively remote, all the local forces only contained less than 400,000 soldiers. How could they fight an over 1 million strong demonized army? This also indicated that the Zhen clan was very vicious. If the Zhen clan aroused trouble when the Holy War broke out, the whole Langi Prefecture would deteriorate heavily in a few days. Langi Prefecture was in the northwest of Jinyun country and there were no powerful forces and clans within 1,000 kilometers of the surroundings. Nobody would know what the Zhen clan could do in Langi Prefecture with over 1 million demonized people. In the Second Holy War, the most powerful parent puppet worm controlled by demons could even control over 3 million demonized people at the same time. At this moment, unless assigning more than 2 core from 1,000 km away and prepared to pay for a high price, they could only surround Heaven's Cold City and annihilate those demonized people in Heaven's Cold City with small teams. They could only weaken the force and reduce the number of those demonized people in Heaven's Cold City. Thankfully, demonized people could not deliver babies. Otherwise, it would much more troublesome. When they were outside a city gate of Heaven's cold city, they would meet some corpses with each step forward. All of them were demonized, over 90% of them had been chopped or cut into pieces. Many corpses had started to rot and grubby. Where's hell? Right here. Although the guys from Thor mercenary army had been used to death and blood, they all started to vomit after only 100 steps forward. Except for Zhang Tai, as he had long experienced this period. He also contributed a part to this scene. Those whose heads were still linked to their necks yet had exploded were mostly the work of his javelins. Glancing over corpses, Zhang Tai looked a bit sorrowful while icy flame gleamed in his eyes. These corpses were once people like him. Goddamn demons. Zhang Tai had made 2 targets silently since he was born. First, he determined to be an alchemist in the auction house in Kalar. Second, he made it to Heaven's cold city. Several days ago, standing in a gate tower in Heaven's cold city, Zhang Tai looked at the abstruse night sky. He then determined that he would never close his eyes until he killed 1 million demons and lackeys of 3 Eye Association and covered Heaven's cold city with those corpses. From then on, watching all this, Zhang Tai didn't vomit anymore. Instead, his eyes were filled with grief while a cold flame was burning in his heart. Having almost vomited everything that he had eaten, bending his body, Zhang watched Zhang Tai's back as straight as usual and felt that Zhang Tai was like a steel statue which contained a foreboding and hard strength that should not belong to this age. Although this teenager looks the same as before in some aspects, he's different in some places. A thought flashed through Zhang's mind. Zhang Tai just waited there for them calmly. When they finished vomiting and stood up, their eyes had turned red and tearful. Zhang Tai then nodded, "Let's go, you will be fine after that. There are more corpses than that inside. But it is more dangerous inside." The 4 people then continued to follow Zhang Tai and walked over to the hell-like place. They soon came to the south gate of Heaven's cold city where they watched a rapid fight. A batch of people in the same uniform as them was killing some demonized people gathering over the passage in the city gate. After that, they pulled away those corpses and cleaned up the passage. Zhang Tai then walked over there and casually stamped a pink worm too. Zhang Tai, one of them walked towards him. Seeing this, Zhang and the other 3 guys shut up. "What's up? Is anyone alive out of there?" Zhang Tai asked as he watched Lu Su. "None." Lu Su waved his head while his half-covered face didn't look good obviously. It's been almost 1 week. Fewer people could escape out of there. These are. Lu Su then turned his eyes to Zhang's group. "Some of my old friends. After hearing the event in Heaven's cold city, they want to have a look inside. Therefore I'm taking them here." Zhang Tai put it straightly and didn't mean to cover the status of Zhang's group at all. Lu Su then moved his eyes from them like having not seen them at all. Thus, he lowered his voice and moved closer to Zhang Tai. "I heard our clan seniors were negotiating with some big figures from other clans on dealing with the event in Heaven's cold city. There are always powerhouses lurking in some sensitive places in the inner city and some banks in the outer city. There are also some guerrillas. Take care of yourself." Zhang Tai understood Lu Su's good intentions. He also knew what Lu Su was hinting about. Therefore, he slightly patted on his shoulder, "Don't worry, they are just figuring out something inside. They would leave in several hours after having a look near the camps of the original city guards." "That's fine, watch out." Lu Su understood it instantly. Zhang Tai then nodded before guided Zhang and the other 3 into Heaven's cold city through the bloody passage. Chapter 374, Battle. Each of Zhang Tai's 9 javelins in the metal container on his back was close to 130 centimeters in length. Besides being used for throwing, the metal javelins could also be used as short spears in close combat. At this moment, noticing that more than 20 demons were rushing towards the 5 people, Zhang Tai waved his spears, 1 in each hand. In a wink, he had made 10 heads explode. Zhang Tai moved so swiftly and directly. Facing those demonized people, he only made 1 movement, prick. Each time he pricked, his short spear would cause a low, wind-breaking sound, SSS, SSS, which suggested his terrifying speed at close quarters. However, to respond to the power of his short spear moves, the heads of the demonized people being pricked all exploded like broken watermelons, sprouting brains backwards. Although those being killed were demonized people, judging from their looks and clothes, these demonized people were all once commoners in Heaven's Cold City, including common businessmen, citizens, students, housewives, the old and the young. The demonized man that Zhang Tai had just exploded was around 40 years old and was still wearing a postman's clothes, with a visible yellow Chinese character on the left breast of his blue uniform. Below that character for male, Zhang Tai peered at his official identification photo and his name, Gu Aming, 1. Compared to that official identification photo, Gu Aming didn't look like how he looked 1 week ago anymore. Instead, his bulging eyes were filled with a bloody, killing intent. His face looked grim and twisted, and a fishy, stinky liquid was flowing out of the corners of his mouth. Gritting his teeth with fury and evil, he was charging at Zhang Tai while waving his limbs. As was expected, he exploded from the impact of Zhang Tai's short spear before he drew too close. After Zhang Tai made Gu Aming's head explode, the remaining demonized people in his group cried out with jarring screams. Hearing this, Zhang Tai changed his facial expression immediately as he pricked another head swiftly and told Zoram's group, "They are calling their partners, we have to get out of here as soon as possible." Hearing Zhang Tai's warning, Jordan swung his huge axe and chopped off 2 demonized people's heads, sending them flying in the air. Zoram and Shrek also each killed 1 respectively. After that, they followed Zhang Tai and rushed into an alley on the side. While being protected by them in the middle, Professor Simon started to pant. After running less than 100 meters, Zhang Tai saw an opening rice store. He then ran inside at once. Followed by the other 4 guys, the moment Jordan went to shut the door, he was stopped by Zhang Tai. "No need. What if those demonized people rush inside?" "No problem. If we close it, we might arouse their attention. Follow me upstairs, and be quiet." Hearing the screams and disorderly footsteps from outside, they hurriedly followed Zhang Tai up to the 2nd floor of the rice store. They were in a small warehouse where someone had lived before. It seemed that chaos had happened here as things were strewn everywhere. Many rice bags were broken. There were even some blood stains on the floor. However, nobody was inside. The moment Zhang Tai had come upstairs, he closed the curtain there. Standing close to the windowsill, he made a gesture to tell the others to be quiet. Therefore, everybody slowed their breathing. Shrek was on high alert above the entrance of the stairs and watched the gate downstairs. If any demonized people rushed inside, he would find out first. The screams of demonized people were drawing closer and closer. It was really noisy in the alley on one side of the rice store and on the other side from the street outside. Hundreds of demonized people rushed by, followed sparsely by many more. From the source of the sound, they knew that those demonized people were rushing towards the place where they'd fought just now. Professor, Jordan, Zoram and Shrek all changed their facial expressions slightly. If they had stayed half a minute longer there, they would have been surrounded by the demonized people. Although normal demonized people had the same fighting strength as a commoner person's, they were all painless and dauntless. If Zhang Tai's group were to be surrounded by them, nobody knew what would happen. They had been in Heaven's Cold City for over 2 hours, during which period they had experienced 6 fights. As a result, they gradually came to understand how terrifying those demonized people were. Like piranhas or army ants, as long as they locked onto their target, those demonized people would all attack together. Unless they were all killed, they would never stop. When being surrounded by demonized people, as long as one was troubled by a demonized person for over 2 seconds, more of them would take the chance and crowd up. In 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 6 seconds, 8 seconds, they would gather until they covered you and gnawed you, leaving nothing at all. Any powerful fighter would be frightened facing such an attack. With a sound downstairs, a demonized person walked in. Seeing this, Shrek made a gesture towards them to tell them to hold their breaths. Jordan then clenched his axe. Zoram narrowed his eyes as he changed the position of his long sword. Professor Simon seemed to be praying as he drew something on his chest. Zhang Tai gazed at the foot of the stairs. Over 10 seconds later, the sound downstairs drew farther away, while the screams outside also faded. Several minutes later, after those noises disappeared, everybody finally let out a breath. Shrek then jumped from his position at the stairs and walked towards the other people, throwing himself onto a rice bag. Zhang watched outside carefully from the windowsill. "Those demonized people have gone, only leaving a couple of them wandering in the alley," he said. "Professor Simon, why didn't they call their partners the moment they saw us instead of doing that when they only had 1 or 2 left?" Shrek asked. "After losing the guidance of their parent puppet worm, all the demonized people have poor organization. They are not even as smart as spiders or ants. When they caught sight of us, they took us as their food and target. We made them excited, just like how those stupid animals are when they notice their food and mates. Of course, they would not share their food with others." Hearing Professor Simon's explanation, Jordan quivered all over. "Professor Simon, could you change the metaphor? We are their food, but what mother asterisk king mates? Who wants to hug those guys in a bed?" Professor Simon then revealed a smile in an embarrassed way. Ignoring Jordan's qualms, he said only when they've confirmed that they have no chance of eating us would they then send an SOS to their own kind. "Before coming to Heaven's Cold City, I even thought they could speak. It's really out of my imagination that they could only scream." Language is a very advanced function in the human brain. It requires a very high level of intelligence. Although those puppet worms can control one's actions by living in their brains, they cannot control people's language function. The reason lies in the very low intelligence of puppet worms themselves. They cannot deal with the sophisticated functions of the language area in human brains, not to mention comprehending human language, logic and contents or exchange by language. While they were talking in low voices, Zhang Tai was furrowing among the things in the room. He found some dried fruits and passed them to the other people, saying, "Eat some first to regain your physical strength. We might face more battles like this later on." When they entered Heaven's Cold City, it meant they'd entered the battlefield. Of course, Zhang Tai would seize any chance to recover his physical strength and spiritual energy, and maintain them in their optimum states. This was a battlefield survival skill that he'd learned in Ironblood Camp. Besides fighting on the battlefield, they needed more strength to persist. "How long from here to the nearest camp of the former city guards?" Zhang asked Zhang Tai after a short thought. Zhang Tai pointed at a direction outside the window. "We need to pass 2 streets. It's about 1,000 meters away from here. Now, only a few demonized city guards are wandering in the city, while 90% of the rest of the demonized city guards are gathering around the inner city of Heaven's Cold City, where the parent puppet worm was killed. I don't think we can continue like this. It's too dangerous, especially for Professor Simon," Zhang said as he drew on the floor with his long sword. "How about this? We will find a place within this region to settle down Professor Simon first. Then 2 of us stay with Professor Simon to protect him while the other 2 go outside to catch 2 demonized city guards. The advantage of this method is that we could reduce our chance of exposure. Additionally, those going outside could get out of danger with their own fighting strength more quickly." Chapter 375, Military Camp. The moment Zhang posed the plan, everybody else agreed. If they stayed together, it truly would be too eye-catching for those demonized people. Additionally, their efficiency would also decline. "How about Shrek and I go out and catch 2 demonized city guards?" Zhang Tai nodded as he said, "Zhang and Jordan are responsible for protecting Professor Simon. If any accidents occur and evacuation becomes necessary, each group can leave Heaven's Cold City separately. We can then gather near the south gate of Heaven's Cold City." "I agree. I agree. Me too." Everybody nodded. Professor Simon needed to be protected. Therefore, it was safe for him to stay with a powerhouse and a clear guy. Zhang Tai was familiar with Heaven's Cold City. Shrek was a senior scout who was good at spying and urban warfare. Therefore, it was proper for the 2 people to catch demonized people to bring back. Professor Simon, which parts of the demonized people do you need? Only their heads? Zhang Tai asked. Although their heads are the most important part, you'd better bring back their complete bodies. As puppet worms can influence one's internal organs, we can get more precise information through a complete study of their organs. I understand. After the discussion, they took a short rest in the warehouse before leaving. A couple of demonized people were still wandering in the alley outside. The moment Zhang Tai walked out of the door of the rice store, he killed them with his javelins before they made any sound. As they had all been fighting the demonized people in close combat until now, it was Zhang Tai's first time showing his javelin-throwing talent to them. Zaram and the other three guys heard the sonic booms when Zhang Tai threw out his javelins. None of them had imagined that Zhang Tai's javelin-throwing skill had reached the level of causing a sonic boom. Therefore, they were amazed, especially Zaram. Although he knew Zhang Tai well, it was still about his imagination that Zhang Tai could realize this in only 1 year after leaving Black Hot City. Most people who excelled at throwing javelins would at least reach LV8 before they could create a sonic boom because sonic booms required great, explosive physical strength. Take Captain Curlin as an example, he was able to create a sonic boom in the middle and late period of LV8. Zhang Tai, what's your level now? Zaram asked Zhang Tai as he ran. Just reached LV7. Considering the sonic booms they heard, Zaram and the other three guys was not surprised about that answer. They were all thinking that Zhang Tai might have learned some secret knowledge after he returned to his Zhang clan. In some big clans with long histories, it was not difficult for a person at Zhang Tai's age to reach LV7. Zhang Tai didn't give any explanation either. Instead, he rapidly collected his javelins from the dead bodies and led them towards a camp of former city guards in the distance. As there were too many demonized people on the main streets, Zhang Tai especially chose side alleys. Sometimes, he directly entered the buildings on his side and ran on the roofs of the buildings in cases when there were too many demonized people. Even though they were very carefully, it was unavoidable that they still met 4 teams of demonized people hundreds of meters away. After learning from the former experiences, they all moved very fast in these battles, leaving no time for those demonized people to utter any scream. Zhang Tai noticed that after Shrek killed those demonized people, he immediately took their purses. Zhang Tai didn't say any word about that as mercenaries were good at doing that kind of thing. The places with great wealth in Heaven's Cold City were within the inner city and in the Heaven's Cold City bank opened by the Jin clan. Both places had been under the watchful gaze of powerhouses from Huayuan Palace. However, people could still find much wealth from the other places in the city. With a jarring scream uttered by a demonized person from afar, all the surrounding demonized people rushed over there. As a result, the streets became instantly empty. In a room, Zhang Tai and Zaram's men heard the disorder footsteps from outside. This is a good chance. Someone else must have attracted those demonized people. We can directly rush over there. Ready. Zhang Tai also became more vigilant. When the footsteps had gone far away, Zhang Tai sped up followed by Jordan, who directly hefted Professor Simon on his shoulder. Zaram and Shrek were at the back of the team. Zhang Tai targeted at a hotel with more than 10 floors 200 meters away. This was the longest distance for them to run in a breath since they entered Heaven's Cold City. It only took them a bit more than 10 seconds to get there. Ahead of the team, Zhang Tai rushed before the gate of the hotel and caught sight of 4 demonized waiters of the hotel wandering out of the lobby. Of course, the 4 demonized people also saw Zhang Tai. Before they uttered any voice, Zhang Tai had already exploded their heads with 4 javelins. Closely after that, all of them rushed into the lobby. As being not chased after on the way here, Jordan heavily panted, F***ck, I couldn't have imagined that we could run so freely in Heaven's Cold City. Douchebag, hurry up, put me down. Professor Simon swore. Jordan hurriedly put him down. 2 minutes later, after killing 7 or 8 more demonized people in the hotel, they arrived at a conference room at the top of the hotel. Standing in the conference room, they were able to see the military camp hundreds of meters away and some demonized people in the uniforms of former city guards wandering outside the camp. Nice spot, we will choose here then. Zhang looked around before nodded. Fine, if we don't come back in 2 hours, we must have encountered some accident or special situation. You should then evacuate without us. Zhang Tai told Zhang. Okay. Take care of yourselves. Zhang nodded. After reaching an agreement on the details, Zhang Tai and Shrek walked downstairs and left from the rear door. Before separation, they even exchanged glances with each other. After that, they chose a direction respectively and ran towards the military camp. Shrek chose an alley while Zhang Tai directly dashed through the streets. Shrek thought that Zhang Tai would choose the roofs of those low buildings, however, it was really out of his imagination that Zhang Tai would choose that way. Therefore, he was stunned. What a crazy guy. Isn't he afraid of being surrounded by demonized people? Of course, Zhang Tai was not afraid of that. Because he didn't think any of the demonized people inside Heaven's Cold City could catch up with him and block him. With his physical strength, he could keep running for a whole day in Heaven's Cold City like this, regardless of the quantity of those demonized people. Now that most of demonized people above LV10 in Heaven's Cold City had been cleared by the powerhouses of the 6 clans, the remaining demonized people above LV10 were staying near the inner city of Heaven's Cold City. Few of them wandered outside. Even though Zhang Tai had met one of them, he was still confident that he could escape with the bliss of his rapid-moving skill. When he left the hotel, Zhang Tai triggered his rapid-moving skill, therefore, he moved even faster on the streets. As he expected, after a few footsteps, Zhang Tai was noticed by some wandering demonized people on the streets. They then chased after Zhang Tai, however, Zhang Tai just ignored them. As a result, more and more demonized people noticed Zhang Tai and started to follow him. In less than 200 m, Zhang Tai had been followed up by hundreds of demonized people. As common demonized people ran almost as fast as commoners, they were gradually lagged behind by Zhang Tai. For Zhang Tai, with high-speed movement, he could keep out of range of all the attacks and harassment of demonized people in Heaven's Cold City. Unless he stopped, he would never be surrounded by demonized people. Even though more and more demonized people were chasing after him, the distance between them and Zhang Tai was also expanding. As long as Zhang Tai changed a route or made a turn, many of the demonized people following him would lose their target and start to wander in the streets again. Zhang Tai chose to stay close to that military camp's perimeter. After only several minutes, he had already gotten rid of the demonized people chasing after him. After circling around the military camp, Zhang Tai jumped off the 3-meter-high wall in the east. The whole camp was ruined by the battle airships of Huayuan Palace, as a quarter of the ground and a fifth of the buildings in the camp had been attacked by white phosphorus gel combustion bombs, while metal bolts shot by the small caliber, rapid-fire ballista from the battle airships of Huayuan Palace spread everywhere, many of them even burrowed deep into the soil. Along with those traces left by the war were those incomplete corpses. As those corpses were left a week earlier, nobody cleaned them up, therefore, it was pretty disgusting. Nobody would like to see them at all. At this time, the whole camp, which once housed over 10,000 city guards, had become a completely empty zone. Besides some demonized people wandering around like ghosts on the large training field, nobody else was alive, except for Zhang Tai. At sight of Zhang Tai, the couple of demonized people rushed towards Zhang Tai at once. Chapter 376, Double Carp Swords. 3 demonized city guards were rushing towards Zhang Tai. They all looked pretty disgusting, with the skin of 2 of them heavily burned. Besides that, one of them had lost an eye, and one's hair and scalp was burned off. The last one had a bolt in the right side of his chest, while disgusting pus was flowing out of the festering wound. Due to their stink, a lot of flies were circling around them. With only one glance at them, Zhang Tai had given up his plan to bring them back to Professor Simon. They were really disgusting. With one javelin, Zhang Tai slashed their heads into pieces as fast as he could, like swatting flies. After that, he started to search the military camp. As he didn't see Shrek inside the camp, Zhang Tai thought that he must have been targeting the demonized city guards wandering outside the military camp. This was a very large military camp, which covered about 500,000 square meters, including the training field. Many buildings inside the camp had been burned, leaving behind the most common barracks, some training facilities, warehouses, canteens, and so on. According to the habits of demonized people, some of them preferred to wander where their hosts used to stay. Therefore, Zhang Tai didn't believe that there were only 3 demonized people inside such a large military camp. Although he couldn't see any on the training field, he might meet some demonized people somewhere else. Zhang Tai ran directly towards the nearest barracks. The door to the barracks was half closed. When he arrived, Zhang Tai kicked it open at once. After peeping inside, he found no demonized people at all. It was chaotic and nothing could be seen on the bunk beds except for dust. Zhang Tai kept kicking open the doors of 7 more barracks and found no demonized city guards inside at all. Then Zhang Tai came to the gate of a building with 4 floors. That building was very magnificent. Its exterior was covered with delicate marble bricks. There was also a noticeable copper plate on the wall outside, reading, Brigade of City Guards 3 Headquarters, Heaven's Cold City. There were 2 empty sentry booths outside the gate of the building. Some military vehicles and light-wheeled infantry chariots were parked in the parking lot beside the building. Those vehicles were crowded together in a disorderly way and the scene was lifeless. One chariot had even run into a parterre beside the building. After crashing into the parapet guardrail, it tilted over the parterre and was damaged greatly. Everything there seemed to reveal how chaotic it was when the airships of Huayuan Palace had assaulted this military camp 1 week ago. Zhang Tai didn't intend to go inside. But then he suddenly heard sounds from upstairs and changed his mind, deciding to search inside. After entering the building, the sounds became louder. The sounds, bang, 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 were drifting down from upstairs every second. With a javelin in hand, Zhang Tai silently went to the stairs of the building before he rushed upstairs. Like other similar buildings, the stairs were in the middle. On both sides of each floor were corridors, and lining the corridors were rooms and offices. At a glance, the design was indicative of military camps. Nobody was in the corridors on the 2nd and 3rd floors, so the sound had come from the 4th floor, which was more luxurious than the lower floors as it had dark red carpet on the floor. The moment Zhang Tai came to the 4th floor, he caught sight of a man in military uniform at the end of the corridor on the left, who was thumping on a closed door with his fist. As that man had his back to Zhang Tai, the latter could not clearly see his face. Therefore, Zhang Tai could not judge whether or not the man was a demonized person. All the rooms and offices on this floor were opened, with papers scattered all over the floor, except for the room at the end of the corridor on the left. Zhang Tai took a look around and found nobody else on this floor. He walked towards the man in military uniform and stopped 10 meters away from him. He coughed, ahem. Zhang Tai's cough was extraordinarily loud in the empty corridor. The moment the man heard this, he turned around. Bloody eyes, a grim and twisted face, and mucus dripping from the corners of its mouth, all this indicated that it was a demonized city guard. What made Zhang Tai excited was that it was a 2nd lieutenant. Zhang Tai then let out a sigh, thankfully, this one doesn't look that disgusting. The demonized person then charged at Zhang Tai, intending to punch his face. It moved very swiftly, equal to the fighting strength of a level 6 fighter. Zhang Tai revealed a smile as he faced its attack head-on, like how a tough guy would bully a toddler. He ended the fight in the blink of an eye. Catching its wrist in one hand, Zhang Tai pushed the demonized person's head with his other hand. Then, with a kacha sound, he rotated its head 360 degrees and immediately broke its neck like breaking off corn cobs. As a result, the puppet's head was bent backwards over 180 degrees and lolled down its back while the top of its head was facing the floor. No blood was spilled during the whole process. Zhang Tai then loosened his grip, letting that demonized 2nd lieutenant fall onto the floor like mud. However, Zhang Tai hadn't expected that the puppet wouldn't die immediately. Instead it lay on the floor, its limbs still twitching slightly like a machine that was out of control. Meanwhile, its bloody eyes gazed at itself, intending to control its own body once again. Although Zhang Tai had long known that demonized people had a very strong physical endurance, he had not imagined that the puppet could still try to stand up at that moment. Mother asterisk cur. Zhang Tai swore as he immediately raised his foot and stomped on its limbs to break them. After that, the puppet didn't move anymore. However, its bloody eyes were still gazing at Zhang Tai. Thankfully, Zhang Tai's psychological endurance was great and he didn't care about this staring salute. Previously, Zhang Tai had intended to catch it, however, at the sight of the metal plate on the door, Zhang Tai changed his mind. The plate read, Brigade Commander's Office. He thought to take a look inside, as there could be some good items there. A thought flashed across Zhang Tai's mind, no matter what, they are Jin clan's items. Just take them. It seemed that this was an important place as it had a reinforced metal protective door. At that moment it was obviously locked, otherwise the demonized man would not have thumped on it for so long, leaving only a dent in it. Pa. Zhang Tai patted the door's surroundings. From the muffled resonance, Zhang Tai knew that it was a heavy door. Zhang Tai then took a deep breath and moved one step back. After that, he ferociously kicked its lock with the elephant stomp movement of Iron Blood Fist. With a crisp sound, bang, the whole door, along with its frame, changed shape greatly, leaving a crack of space between the door and its frame about 2 fists wide. After another elephant stomp, with a boom, the door fell down together with its door frame. Soon after that, fine plaster and cement blocks dropped from the ceiling and covered Zhang Tai's head and face. Peh. Zhang Tai kept spitting out of the cement and plaster as he patted off the dust in his hair. After that, he walked into the office. It'll be a great loss if I find nothing inside. He came to an outer room of the office, which was more than 30 square meters big. There were some filing cabinets, a sofa set and a desk close to the door. Some maps were hanging on the wall. It seemed to be the office of a secretariat or an advisor. After a glance, Zhang Tai could see nothing valuable. Therefore, he didn't search it any more than that. There was a dark red door on the right wall, which was half covered. Stepping on the thick carpet, Zhang Tai walked over there and pushed open the door. Compared to the room outside, the room behind the door was like an office of a brigade commander. It covered more than 100 square meters. The moment he walked inside, he saw a huge sand model of the city on a table in the middle of the room, and 2 nice, crisscrossed, gleaming long swords on the wall facing the door. Jin clan is really rich. Zhang Tai sighed with feeling as he touched the 2 1-meter-high crystal columns, each of which weighed hundreds of kilograms. The 2 crystal columns on both sides of the door looked pretty good. They were transparent all over. Additionally, a steamed bun-sized pyramid energy shadow had formed in their cores. The moment Zhang Tai drew close to them, he felt the powerful energy effects of the 2 super crystal generators. Such large pyramid crystals were close to at least level 6. Zhang Tai had not seen such large pyramid crystals before. The value of the 2 items was definitely worth more than 10,000 gold coins. After confirming that nobody was in the room, Zhang Tai teleported the 2 huge pyramid crystals into Castle of Black Iron without any hesitation. This was really a worthwhile trip for Zhang Tai. The brigade commander's office had been arranged in an ambient way. Other than the 2 huge crystal generators, there were some oak bookcases which were filled with books. At the sight of the bookcases and the books inside, Zhang Tai's eyes gleamed. Without a second thought, he collected all of them into his study room in Castle of Black Iron. As his study room in Castle of Black Iron was still empty, he would not waste the precious books on those bookcases. Until now, Zhang Tai still remembered his experience while in the Grant family's private library in Prague. In this day and age, books were also a very important treasure. When he was in Jin's mansion, Zhang Tai had the chance to move all the books from the mansion into Castle of Black Iron. However, due to an emergency he'd had no time to collect every book. Additionally, he was afraid of exposing himself to the Zhang clan. By contrast, he didn't need to consider any of that at this moment. Besides bookcases, there was also a wine cabinet in the office, which was filled with various types of alcohol. However, Zhang Tai wasn't interested in drinking them as he was not sure what was inside of the bottles. Many elite weapons were hanging on a wall. There were also 2 sets of nice-looking armor. However, Zhang Tai didn't touch them either. On one side of the desk, Zhang Tai found a safe which was completely open, leaving nothing inside. It seemed that someone had taken the items away in a frenzy. Only God knew who had those items now. After that, Zhang Tai checked the last thing in the office, the desk. Zhang Tai came to the desk and pulled out the drawer at the bottom. As only some documents had been left inside, Zhang Tai turned them over randomly before pushing the drawer closed. Some boxes of cigars and some delicate boxes of medicament were lying in the drawer on the second layer. Zhang Tai picked up one box of medicament and found some sexy women on the package, who had alluring, slim eyes and half-exposed boobs. There were 3 lines of Chinese characters on the package. Beauty's grown every night. Tone your kidney and nourish your body. With one piece, you will be a real man overnight. Secret medicament from Qianglu Pavilion of Taixia in the Eastern Continent. F***CK. Zhang Tai swore as he pressed the drawer back in. When he pulled open the drawer on the 3rd layer, he found some medals and an exquisite box made of silver and gold, which was about 30 square centimeters wide and more than 10 centimeters high. Zhang Tai took the box out of the drawer and opened it. A belt, made of gold and silver diamond-shaped pieces of metal, was lying inside. At the sight of this belt, Zhang Tai widened his eyes in amazement. No way. Zhang Tai screamed inside, no way, repetitively as this belt's design and its brilliant, noble and slim buckle made him excited. It was too familiar for Zhang Tai. This was obviously another red snake sword. Additionally, compared to the red snake sword that he'd gained in Ironhorn Army, this one looked better and more advanced. Zhang Tai then pressed the bead in the middle of the buckle. With an extremely low sound, TSA, 2 fish shot out at the same time. Zhang Tai took one of the 2 fish. Feeling the fine, anti-slip scales and the heavy texture on the fish, Zhang Tai instantly recalled the same feeling from when he'd held the red snake sword. Holding the handle of this slim, golden fish, Zhang Tai noticed the small Chinese characters on its back, golden carp of double carp swords. Zhang Tai slightly released his Ironblood battle chi. A sword ray instantly sprouted out of the golden carp's mouth and stretched 6 meters away. Amid the sword light, Zhang Tai seemed to see a flexible golden carp. Just as when he'd used the red snake sword before, when he pushed it with his sword chi, the secret grains on the blades cast a vivid pattern in the air. Zhang Tai took the other fish sword in his left hand. At the same time, he slightly released his Ironblood battle chi to push out the sword light from the mouth of this other fish. The thin sword blade also reached 6 meters away. The only difference was that the projection in the air from this sword was a silver carp. Zhang Tai waved his hands at the same time. In a split second, the room was filled with crisscrossing sword light. Like performing a magic trick, Zhang Tai unleashed golden and silver carps from his hands, making them swim 6 meters ahead of him in the air. As he was not accustomed to the 2 weapons and the effective distance of the weapons was a bit long, the 2 weapons collided with each other every now and then with a splash. Due to an unsteady gesture from his left hand, the silver carp swam over the middle of the wine cabinet, instantly creating a clean cut through the bottles inside. As a result, all the items inside the wine cabinet shattered. Ha 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 ha, Zhang Tai burst out in laughter. The double carp swords were definitely 1 level higher than the red snake sword that he'd used before. The 2 swords were greater in various ways, including effective distance, sharpness and craftsmanship. Zhang Tai guessed that the weapons had probably been gifted to the master of this office. Zhang Tai sighed with feeling. This gift is really much better than those weapons in the warehouse of the Ironhorn Army. Zhang Tai had been shocked when he'd gained the rare red snake sword before. However, he had not imagined that he could gain another set of swords of the same quality just 1 year later. Was this his destiny? Jin's assassin had made him lose his red snake sword in Dragon Cave. However, now he'd gained a much better set of double carp swords within Jin's territory. This must have been predestined. Zhang Tai then instantly tied his double carp swords to his waist. Being covered by his field combat clothes, nobody would know that Zhang Tai had changed his sword belt. By then, Zhang Tai was satisfied. After another glance around the office, the corners of Zhang Tai's mouth were raised as he left the room. When he went back through the door of the outer office, Zhang Tai grabbed the demonized person whose bloody eyes were popping out and was still intending to pick itself up. Zhang Tai then rushed downstairs with it in hand, like he'd caught a small chick, and rushed outside of the camp. 10 minutes later, after shaking off the demonized puppets chasing him by taking a circular detour, Zhang Tai returned to the hotel where Professor Simon and the other two guys were. Less than 2 minutes after Zhang Tai returned, Shrek also came back with a demonized puppet in hand. "Well, they are mine now. Please spare me 2 hours. You can leave now," said Professor Simon. After placing the 2 demonized puppets onto the desk of the conference room in the hotel, she instantly covered Professor Simon as he chased the other people out of his working place like a chef who was ready to cook 2 fat fish. Zhang Tai, Shrek, Zaram and Jordan were then chased out of the conference room by Professor Simon as well. At the entrance of the conference room, Shrek put his arm around Jordan's neck and murmured something to him. Jordan then forcefully swallowed his saliva and nodded. "Zaram, it's enough if you accompany Professor Simon here. Jordan and I want to make an inspection round inside the hotel to eliminate the other demonized puppets here," said Shrek as he winked. Because he was clever, of course Zaram knew what they were really going to do, but he only exhorted them, "Watch out, don't bring in those demonized puppets from outside the hotel." "No problem," Shrek responded with a big smile. Then he glanced at Zhang Tai. "How about inspecting the hotel together with us?" "No need. Just do what you want. Except for money and some valuable items, don't take any items that are too conspicuous with you. Otherwise you will have trouble," Zhang Tai warned. Considering the fact the hotel's star rating wasn't too low, there would probably be a lot of money and some valuable items inside the hotel, or left behind from the guests. Whether they could find these things depended on their luck. Shrek and Jordan then walked away jubilantly. "Aren't you going?" Zaram asked Zhang Tai with a smile. "I have many chances to make money like this, so I'm not in much of a hurry," said Zhang Tai, having just made a fortune. "I almost forgot that. You can come here whenever you want." Zaram patted his head. "Oh, have you gotten a message from Captain Curlin? Has he left Black Hot City too?" Zaram shook his head. "I contacted him a month ago. He was still in the No. 7 National Middle School. You might not know yet, but that guy has bought a house near Bright Avenue." "Bought a house?" As a man who wants to protect and be responsible for a woman, of course he needs to prepare a fixed house in Black Hot City. Zaram mocked, "That guy is rude and rarely falls in love with any women. But since he's fallen in love with a woman like Miss Dana from your school, he would not leave Black Hot City unless he saw no chance of surviving. In order to buy a house there, that guy almost robbed nonstop these past few years." Miss Dana. After hearing this familiar and beautiful name, Zhang Tai became slightly absent-minded. 2 hours later, Shrek and Jordan came back red-faced with items fully covering their waists. At this time, Professor Simon also walked out of the conference room as he wiped off the blood stains on hands. At the sight of Professor Simon's slightly pale and frightened face, Zhang Tai was slightly shocked inside. Professor Simon trembled, his voice hoarse. I have to go back to arms, right now." Chapter 377, Ahead of Time. When the 5 people went back to the refugee camp, it was almost 2 p.m. Zaram and his men changed their clothes in Zhang Tai's tent. Zhang Tai then saw them off. "No matter what, Thor Mercenary Army owes you," the emaciated Professor Simon said as he embraced Zhang Tai to bid him farewell. Although they'd only stayed with each other for 1 morning, they had become brothers in arms. "Come to arms when you are free. I will introduce the hottest girl to you," Jordan said as he gave a bear hug to Zhang Tai. "Thanks for that nickname, Black Cyclone, I like that. You can bring me fortune." Shrek also hugged Zhang Tai and sighed with feelings. "Now, Heaven's Cold City is like a vault. To be honest, I don't even want to leave." Zaram also hugged Zhang Tai. "Take care of yourself." "You too," Zhang Tai replied. "We plan to go to Huayuan Prefecture, however, we have to give up on it. Professor Simon said we had to notify the headquarters of Thor mercenary army and let them prepare for the coming war. Zharam appeared to be slightly disappointed. Why were you going to Huaiyuan Prefecture? Zhang Tai was slightly stunned by this. I heard an alchemist in Huaiyuan Prefecture had produced all-purpose medicament. After the event in Heaven's Cold City, the various medicaments are in short supply. However, arms is covered with poisonous things. As long as the antidote is in short supply, it will cause many bad chain reactions. Previously, we intended to seek a solution in Huaiyuan Prefecture, but now. Zharam waved his head helplessly. As they only had one airship, they had to go back to notice arms first about the more emergent information. How many vials of all-purpose medicament do you need? At least 4,000 vials. Zharam replied. The trading volume of 4,000 vials of medicament was huge wherever it was, especially for a mercenary army. If Thor mercenary army was under the control of Zharam, Zhang Tai would directly promise him by selling or gifting him the all-purpose medicament. Zhang Tai's life philosophy was influenced by his dad and his mom as he firmly insisted on repaying one's help. When he attended survival training in Wild Wolf Valley, Zharam and Captain Kurlan saved him in the cave. Of course, as repayment, Zhang Tai would gift his all-purpose medicament to him without any hesitation. However, Thor mercenary army was not under Zharam's control. As a member who was though highly up by the management of the mercenary army, he was nothing different than a staff member in a business group. He was not even a shareholder. Therefore, Zhang Tai needed to consider it carefully. If he repaid his thanks to Thor mercenary army, it'd be not proper. Instead, he needed to repay his thanks to Zharam and let Thor mercenary army know about Zharam's significance in the army, which would be advantageous for Zharam's development in the mercenary army. Many thoughts flashed across Zhang Tai's mind. Zhang Tai smiled and pretended to take out of something from the vials container in his tactical vest. Actually, he was taking out of 2 vials of all-purpose medicament from Castle of Black Iron and gave them to Zharam. Do you mean this? At the sight of the 2 vials of medicament in Zhang Tai's hands, Zharam, Simon, Shrek, and Jordan were stunned. Under the sunlight, the crystal vials were radiating rainbow-like brilliance, which made the greenish yet golden medicament pretty mysterious. The unique symbol of Manjusaka on the vials instantly attracted their eyes. Arg, Manjusaka, I heard it was the symbol of the all-purpose medicament. Shrek screamed before Zharam spoke. Zhang Tai, where do you get this from? Why wouldn't members of the Zhang clan have such good items from Huaiyuan Prefecture? Zhang Tai casually answered. Staring at the 2 vials of all-purpose medicament, Zharam's eyes gleamed. I was told that very little of such medicament could flow out of Huaiyuan Prefecture. Nobody in arms has even seen it. We just heard about its marvelous functions. Can it really replace preliminary antidote potions? If you only used to detoxify, you would find it was more effective than preliminary antidote potion. Some of my friends have tried it. This thing could easily detoxify the toxin of a huge centipede. Hearing Zhang Tai's words, Professor Simon took one and started to gaze at it carefully. He seemed wanting to open it, however, he felt embarrassed to do that, ergo, he glanced at Zhang Tai, asking for Zhang Tai's agreement. Just open it, these 2 vials of all-purpose medicament are yours. Hearing this, Professor Simon instantly opened the clasp of the vial and moved it closer to his nose and sniffed. Soon after that, he looked very energetic. Seeing this, Jordan and Shrek also drew close. Arg, how come it smells so good? Jordan shouted. Is this the smell of a super enzyme? Professor Simon became a bit stunned. What, Professor? Shrek asked. Alas, I also wanted to be an alchemist when I was young. I studied some knowledge as a herbal apprentice and tried to make a super enzyme. Pitifully, I failed it. I even wasted several years on this. At the sight of this vial of all-purpose medicament, I recalled what happened before. Professor Simon waved his head in a nostalgic look. Zharam then looked at Zhang Tai full of inquiries and desires, which could be easily felt. When you go to Huaiyuan Prefecture next time, you can go to Jinwu Company in Jinhai City. You could get all-purpose medicament there. Zhang Tai told Zoram. Jinwu Company? Hearing this, Zoram became a bit surprised. Companies were usually small trading organizations. The greater ones would be called commercial associations or business groups. He had not heard a company called Jinwu Company in Jinhai City of Huaiyuan Prefecture could sell all-purpose medicament. Zoram felt it was unbelievable. Is Jinwu Company selling this? If it were anyone else, they would not be able to buy all-purpose medicament from Jinwu Company even for a high price, but if it's you, you will definitely buy it from Jinwu Company. They can get all-purpose medicament for you through special channels. Hearing Zhang Tai's words, not only Zoram understood, even Professor Simon, Shrek and Jordan had understood, who then glanced at Zoram with amazed looks. When did Zoram become so welcome? No matter whether Zhang Tai was bragging or not, it was very significant for Thor mercenary army that Zoram can get all-purpose medicament from Huaiyuan Prefecture. Zoram glanced at Zhang Tai and felt moved inside. Hearing Zhang Tai's words, Zoram finally confirmed that this teenager might have grown too powerful, so much so that even Zoram felt strange about him. People didn't need to explain some things. Zoram then embraced Zhang Tai once again. Take care of yourself, I hope to see you again. You too. Zoram, Shrek, Jordan and Professor Simon finally departed Zhang Tai. Seeing them disappearing in the distance, Zhang Tai stood still in the wild for a while. He then took a deep breath and looked at the scorching sun before he returned to the refugee camp. It was a sunny day, however, Zhang Tai felt chilly inside. Watching their backs, Zhang Tai wondered if he would see them again. Perhaps this was the last time they would see each other. Last year, Donder told him that the Third Holy War between human race and demons would break out in 5 to 20 years. So, according to Donder, the Holy War would break out in 4 years. However, based on the information that Professor Simon gained through study and analysis of the demonized puppets, Zhang Tai knew that it would break out much earlier than estimated. Zhang Tai only had 1 year to prepare for the coming war, instead of 4 years. Based on the analysis of Professor Simon, the puppet worms had lived in their hosts' brains for over 36 months. If not for the event, those puppet worms would have incubated for another 6 months to 1 year. This was very important and frightening information, which meant that demons and their lackeys in 3i Association planned to launch the war and plunge the whole continent into great chaos next year, next August at the latest, as was predicted by Professor Simon. The world had become chaotic. What happened in Heaven's Cold City was just the beginning. In the future, more and more places would become a hell like Heaven's Cold City. Zhang Tai didn't know whether the complete collapse and exposure of the Zhen clan in Heaven's Cold City would let demons and 3i Association's some plans shift to earlier dates. Now that Professor Simon could gain the information through anatomy and analysis of the puppets, Zhang Tai believed that those big clans in Jinyun country and the other countries and powers which took away not only one demonized puppet from Heaven's Cold City could also work it out. As long as they started to accelerate their defense towards the Third Holy War, actually, they were forcing 3i Association and demons to launch the war. Therefore, Zhang Tai and most of the other average people would have less time to prepare for it. No war would start when both parties were well prepared for it. Wars were always competitions on speed. Thinking of this shocking information, Zhang Tai walked in the refugee camp with a low mood. Seeing those extremely sorrowful and numb looks, Zhang Tai's heart gradually became cold. At this moment, Zhang Tai was like a man running on the prairie, seeing the horizon in the distance. He thought that he could somewhere brilliant if he kept running like that. However, all of a sudden, that man found that the horizon was merely a mirage. Actually, he stood on the edge of an abyss and had no road ahead. At this time, a red leather football rolled towards Zhang Tai and hit his foot, causing him to look around. A sunny boy of 5 years old or so was running towards him. Elder brother, can you kick the football back to me? At the sight of the little boy's smiling face, Zhang Tai became stunned. After circling around the refugee camp for several days, it was Zhang Tai's first time to see such a happy smile. It was like a ray of sunlight among the black clouds. Zhang Tai didn't react until the little kid repeated what he said. Zhang Tai then slightly picked the football by his foot into the air and held it by hand. After that, Zhang Tai walked towards that little boy and squatted, patted his little head, and passed the football to him. Are you alone? Where's your dad? My dad is catching bad guys in Heaven's Cold City. The little boy answered in a spirited way. He's a police officer in Heaven's Cold City. My dad also has the same uniform as yours. But my dad's uniform is blue. Your dad is catching bad guys in Heaven's Cold City? Zhang Tai failed to understand it at once. Are there any bad guys there at this moment? No. Is there anybody alive in Heaven's Cold City? Yes, my mom told me that my dad is very great. He has caught a lot of thieves before. We are camping outside. After my dad catches all the bad guys in Heaven's Cold City, we will go back home. Camping? Zhang Tai looked around at the refugee camp filled with tents. Before he wanted to say something, he saw a 30-odd woman running towards him in a flurried way. Arg, sorry, did Xiaoxing's football hit you? The little boy turned around and told his mom, Mom, I'm talking about Dad with this elder brother. Ah, Xiaoxing, go play over there, don't trouble this elder brother. Haven't I told you to not trouble others when you play? But I was asking whether this elder brother had seen my dad or not. My dad also has a uniform almost the same as that of this elder brother. This elder brother is also in the police. The little boy said innocently before asked Zhang Tai, Elder brother, you are a police officer, right? Yes. Zhang Tai smiled. Are you catching bad guys too? Almost that. But you dad is much sharper. I've not caught any thieves yet. Are you catching bad guys in Heaven's Cold City every day? Have you seen my dad there? How about him now? My mom said my dad would write a letter to me in a few days. The little boy didn't see it, however, when he asked this, his mom who was squatting behind him started crying tears instantly. The woman stared at Zhang Tai with an imploring look. What's your dad's name? Zhang Tai asked patiently. My dad is Feng Weiqiang. Oh, I met him before. When I went to Heaven's Cold City last time, I saw him catch a lot of thieves. He's great. Really? The little boy became excited at once. When you see him next time, can you tell him that Xingxing misses him so much? It's really interesting to live in tents here. I want to play together with him. No problem. Zhang Tai nodded. Hearing Zhang Tai's promise, the little boy threw his football onto the ground and kicked it away. After that, he chuckled and chased after his leather football. The woman hurriedly wiped off his tears as she stood up and thanked Zhang Tai. For this mother's consideration, Zhang Tai could only let out a deep sigh. He will find out about it sooner or later. Just let him remain happy temporarily. He's still young now. I don't want him to know that he has lost his dad at such an age. The woman looked firm and painful. Zhang Tai then glanced at her. I'm Zhang Tai. I live in the camp of Huayuan Palace. If you need my help, come find me. Thanks. The woman dropped off her tears once again. Zhang Tai then left the refugee camp. The woman had given him a lesson just now. From what happened to her and her kid, Zhang Tai learned that no matter how tough the road ahead was, one had to survive on. You might not decide what was going to happen, however, you should at least fix your own attitude. Even a kid could treat living in refugee camp as a camping trip and found pleasure among it. Why wouldn't I treat the tough and unpredictable future as a gamble of my life? Although the future didn't look bright, at least I have taken the preemptive move due to all-purpose medicament. The sudden shortage of medicament materials indicates that the proportion of my all-purpose medicament becomes heavier in the market. What does this mean? It means more money and more chances to gain resources. Then, I will be more influential. Of course, more unpredictable dangers will come towards me. Zhang Tai returned to his base and found 2 officers of Hidden Dragon Palace waiting for him outside his tent. Are you Zhang Tai? The seniors of the Zhang clan want to see you. Hearing this, Zhang Tai's heart pounded. Seniors of the Zhang clan have summoned me? What's that for? Elder brothers, what's up? Zhang Tai asked politely, could it be that I screwed up by leading outsiders in Heaven's Cold City? No way. How could such a trivial thing arouse the attention of the seniors of Zhang clan? We don't know either. Just follow us there, the two officers also replied very politely, which made Zhang Tai recover his composure at once. He then followed the two officers towards the flagship airship in the far. Chapter 378, Never Lower My Head. The airship parked on the ground was like a giant building dozens of stories high. Thick steel wires were pulled taut from the body of the airship and were firmly nailed onto the wood piles on the ground like those ropes nailed to the ground to hold the tents. If not fixed to the ground, such a colossal thing would cause a very dangerous accident when facing heavy winds. To park a huge airship on the ground was as technical as parking a huge ship in the harbor. Zhang Tai learned how to park a huge airship recently. Looking at that airship, which brought him a great sense of oppression, Zhang Tai was thinking about something in his mind. I've not entered Castle of Black Iron to eat fruits for many days. I wonder whether new fruits have grown on the small tree after killing so many demonized puppets over the past few days. Hopefully I can get another trouble reappearance fruit, then I'd be able to try driving a Fury Wind airship in the trouble reappearance space. The huge airship was parked on a wide, sandy area. Many people were accessing the hatch door at the end of the airship. It had observably become a temporary headquarters of Huayuan Palace in Heaven's Cold City. Personnel only. 2 rows of fully armored soldiers from Huayuan Palace were standing outside the hatch door. Without permission, no students from Hidden Dragon Palace were allowed to access the airship. Under the guidance of the 2 officers, Zhang Tai smoothly entered this huge airship and came to the outside of a room on the 2nd floor of the airship. After lightly knocking at the door, the 2 officers said respectfully outside the door, "Senior, Zhang Tai has arrived." "Let him in," a tender voice said from inside the door. An officer pushed open the door and made a gesture to let Zhang Tai in. Zhang Tai then entered the room with various questions filling his mind. The room was arranged in an elegant and simple way. An old man in plain robes was sitting on his knees and making a kettle of fragrant tea water. He looked both attentive and pious. All of his movement made Zhang Tai very comfortable. Zhang Tai looked at his bloody clothes, then looked around the surrounding environment in the room. He instantly felt like a plate of dog meat served in a top-class cocktail party, which formed a sharp contrast. Zhang Tai scratched his head, not knowing whether to walk forward to destroy the nice ambience or just stand still. To be honest, it was Zhang Tai's first time seeing a senior of Huayuan Palace. These seniors not only had a terrifyingly great amount of power, but also had a say in Huayuan Palace. What was more, this man should be Zhang Tai's great-grandfather. Of course, Zhang Tai became nervous in front of him. "Come here, take a seat." The senior was very kind. He seemed to understand what Zhang Tai was thinking about now. Raising his hand, he beckoned Zhang Tai. "Be at home, people are the noblest creature in the universe. Items might not match a man, yet a man is qualified to match all the items. Items might not match a man, yet a man is qualified to match all the items?" Zhang Tai was shocked by this meaningful line. Therefore, Zhang Tai didn't hesitate anymore. Instead, he walked straight into the room and sat on his knees like that senior before the teapot. "Have a try." The senior pushed a cup of tea in front of Zhang Tai. The moment the cup of tea was pushed in front of Zhang Tai smelt a special odor, which was extremely delicate with a refreshing and rigorous moisture. He then thought about the scene in the mountain after the early spring rain. Zhang Tai downed the whole cup of tea, but was shocked. He tasted nothing at all. The tea only tasted a bit sweet, nothing else. "How do you feel?" the senior asked Zhang Tai full of expectation. "It would be better with a bit of sugar in it." Zhang Tai answered honestly. Hearing this reply, the senior's eyelids quivered. He then watched his cup with the same kind of tea water for a short while before sighed, "Didn't you taste such tea before? It's Wild Spring, the top-class tea in Eastern Continent. How come you want some sugar with it?" "I have not tasted any tea like this before. I only tasted tea leaves before," Zhang Tai said with an embarrassed look. Thinking about Zhang Tai's life in Black Hot City, the senior shook his head as he took his teacup and smelt the fragrance of the tea inside. After that, he took a sip carefully and asked Zhang Tai straightforwardly, "You took outsiders into Heaven's cold city today, correct?" Hearing this, Zhang Tai's heart raced instantly. The old man continued sipping his tea. However, Zhang Tai felt that this old man immediately became taller and unshackable like a mountain, which caused him difficulty breathing. This was purely a spiritual feeling. It was an all-round overwhelming state from chi field, spirit, ability, will and other aspects. At this moment, Zhang Tai felt like a trivial ant. No matter how high he jumped, he would always be an ant. In contrast, this old man was a mountain which was hard to pass or compete with. Zhang Tai even felt that on a whim the old man on the opposite could destroy him both spiritually and physically. After only a few seconds, Zhang Tai had realized that he was losing control of his body under such a terrifying suppression. He was now in an extremely powerful force field both physically and spiritually. The force field was like mercury spilling over the ground. It penetrated into his body without any obstacle and could even impede his nerve center and brain from sending orders to his body. Under such suppression, Zhang Tai's straight back started to bend towards the ground slowly. At this moment, each of his cells seemed to be forcing him to lower his head with the instinct to kneel down and give up completely. The senior was still sipping his tea leisurely with his attention on the teacup. He didn't glance at Zhang Tai at all. "Is this a knight's force? Is this the 3-in-1 force mentioned by Master?" Zhang Tai was shocked too much inside. Although he was clear-minded, he felt helpless as he could only see his body slowly bending towards the floor. His head was closer to the beige floor which he was kneeling on. At the same time, the wooden grains on the floor became larger and clearer. "No, I will not surrender to this, even if I die," Zhang Tai screamed inside out of fury. Meanwhile, the veins on his forehead started to bulge. With full of his spirit and strength, he wanted to take back control of his own body. Zhang Tai then saw some images in his mind, that teenager who was abducted by Huck and Snade and stomped onto the ground. Glaze throwing a contemptuous sneer towards him, the 7 wild wolves who almost killed him, the hidden bolt covered with blue frost which was shot towards him after he walked down from the dual platform, those undead of Black Feather's army of the Sun Dynasty who wanted to tear him to pieces. Major Franca's wolf-like eyes, and the assassination attempt executed by that Jin Dushabag in Dragon Cave. No. No, I won't. Zhang Tai's eyes turned red at once. The spiritual energy in his mind was boiling up. Zhang Tai's blood started to boil. Every one of his muscles started to tense as hard as steel and iron. When Zhang Tai's forehead was only 1 egg's distance away from the ground, Zhang Tai's hands which were put on his knees finally became fists. The sweat over his forehead started to drip onto the floor one blob after another. Because of the narrow distance, Zhang Tai could almost hear the sound of his sweat dripping onto the ground. Zhang Tai finally controlled his head. After that, he started to raise his head and straighten up his back gradually. Although it was a simple movement, it caused a sound of kaka-kaka over Zhang Tai's muscles and skeletons like forcefully opening those fixtures on the metal processing platform which had been rusted for a long time. It took Zhang Tai 2 minutes to completely raise his head and straighten his back. However, after such a short while, Zhang Tai was fully covered in sweat like he'd just climbed out of water. His combat uniform had become completely drenched. He felt even more tired than after fighting a whole day in Heaven's cold city. Not until Zhang Tai raised his head and straightened up his body did the senior raise his head and peer at him with a shrewd light. Zhang Tai panted. Even after drinking a cup of tea, he still felt his throat becoming hoarse. He then stared at that person opposite him. "Yes, I took 4 people into Heaven's cold city today. Don't you know about the order?" The senior gazed at Zhang Tai as he put down his teacup. At the same time, his kind gaze turned into sharp bolts and shot directly into Zhang Tai's mind. "Why do you think you are an exception?" Chapter 379, If Not an Ant, Be a Chinese Dragon. Translator, WQL Editor, KLKL. Facing the sharp stare of the senior, Zhang Tai replied without any fear, "I just did what I should do." "What you should do?" A forbidding sneer appeared on the senior's face. "Don't you know that Huayuan Palace is enforcing military laws here?" You think that's what you should do, but you might lose your life according to the military laws. Since its founding, Huayuan Palace has been strictly complying with the clan regulations left by Lord Huayuan for hundreds of years. Even an heir who once violated the clan regulations was abolished and imprisoned for the rest of his life by the clan. Do you think that you are unaffected by clan regulations just because of your all-purpose medicament? Do you think that Huayuan Palace won't kill you? I'm just a small figure. I don't think I am great. If I violate any clan regulations, of course Huayuan Palace could kill me. Zhang Tai raised his head. But as a man, I have to do something. Oh? You still have an excuse for your actions? The senior turned his furious look into a smile. Is your excuse more important than clan regulations? Tell me about your reason. Do they deserve what you did to them? One of them saved my life before. I have to return the favor. This is the first reason. What about the second reason? Zhang Tai kept silent for a short while before he continued with a lower, yet firmer tone. The information that was gained at the cost of over 1 million common people's lives doesn't belong to a single individual, the 6 influential clans in Jinyun country or their privileged lords. Nobody is qualified to hold this information personally. If the news about the Holy War was locked, more average people would become cannon fodder as they wouldn't be able to prepare. You really think so? The senior of Huayuan Palace narrowed his eyes slightly. Yes. Zhang Tai replied with a louder voice as he puffed up his chest. In the last few days, many powerful people have already gained the information they wanted from Heaven's Cold City. I don't think those big figures and influential clans in Central States Union are the only ones who have the right to know that the Holy War will arrive next year, or even in 6 months. Why don't other people have any right to know about this information, which is so closely related to their lives? The senior fixed his eyes onto Zhang Tai's face. His sharp gaze almost shot through Zhang Tai's eyes and entered his mind. Do you want to know why? Because only these people and clans can deal the greatest damage to the demons and keep more people alive. Because of their great combined power and organizational ability, they are qualified to know more information than commoners. Therefore commoners are destined to die? With an extremely solemn face, the senior replied, have you seen how ants cross a river when it has flooded? Ants cannot swim, so all they can do is hug each other in a ball with tens of thousands of them and roll over the river. During this process, many of the ants on the outer sphere are flushed away by the flood, leaving those in the core alive. This holy war is akin to ants crossing a river. In the end, some ants would be flushed away by flood. However, some would survive. Sacrifice is unavoidable. While we cannot make sure that every ant will cross the river, we have to believe that only those ants who are powerful enough to unite can decide the future of the ants. Zhang Tai knew he was right. When the Holy War arrived, most of commoners who were not powerful enough to unite with each other would not organize effective counterattacks towards the demons at all. Instead, they would only think about escape, escape and escape. At this moment, the big figures and I don't think the same. They pay more attention to the ants who can unite with each other. However, I want those commoners who cannot unite with each other, who are doomed to be flushed away by the floods, to make preparations ahead of the floods, even just a bit. They might not be able to roll over the river like other ants, but at least they could have a chance to find a leaf for themselves. Is anybody wrong? Nobody is wrong. Each person has his or her own stance. Although my idea is almost perfect, I could actually only help a few ants. A Thor mercenary army of only tens of thousands of people was nothing compared to those big powers. I was just trying my best to help them in case of regret. Before coming to Huayuan Palace, his family members in Black Hot City were those ants, doomed to be flushed away by this flood in the eyes of those big figures. Thinking of this, Zhang Tai smiled with self-mockery. Until then he didn't realize that although he was rich and more privileged than before, it was impossible for him to become a person like Lan Yunxi or the elites from other clans, because he could not think like them at all. His life experiences at the bottom of Black Hot City had been deeply impressed in his soul. Deep in his mind, there was a small figure, a poor guy, a flesh bag in the Iron Thorns fighting club, who would always do something at the sight of someone like him encountering unfairness or doomed to be cannon fodder. Donder told him that according to a discovery made by human psychologists before the catastrophe, everybody was actually trying to do one thing: to make their personality formed in childhood more complete. I can hardly understand the good intentions of the big figures. Instead, I only want to do something to make me and my friends feel better. I am both resigned to the coming adversities and rebellious. I expect this world to be a paradise where everyone is equal. Does this expectation come from the small figure in my soul? You didn't have to attend this action. Nobody has forced you to do that. But you came voluntarily in response to the summons of the clan. Additionally, you are very brave on the battlefield. I appreciate it very much. Seeing Zhang Tai stay silent for a while, the senior sipped a mouthful of tea and continued, "As it's your first mistake taking people inside the city privately, I will punish you according to the military laws of Huayuan Palace in the name of playing favoritism. Your clan contribution points for this action will be fully deducted. Furthermore, you should accept 100 whips. Do you agree? A country has its national laws, similarly, a clan has its regulations. As I have violated the regulations of Huayuan Palace, I accept the punishment voluntarily," Zhang Tai said in a low voice. There's another thing that you need to know. Someone of the Zhen clan once worked in the Alchemists Association of Jinyun Country. The quantity of vials that you ordered from Alchemists Association was too large and had attracted his attention. Therefore, the Zhen clan arranged for someone to assassinate you on Hidden Dragon Island. Additionally, the Zhen clan are members of the Three-Eye Association, which was developed by demons among the human race. After they heard that you can realize mass production of all-purpose medicament, the other clans and members in Three-Eye Association probably already knew about it too. Therefore, you are in a very dangerous situation right now. Three-Eye Association wants to kill me? Zhang Tai was shocked by this information. He thought that he had solved the problem after sweeping the Jin clan. However, he had not imagined that Jin's attack on him might only be the beginning, as Three-Eye Association was backing the Jin clan and might still be watching him at this moment. Based on Three-Eye Association's style, when we are on the verge of the Third Holy War, they will eliminate anyone who can reinforce the overall strength of the human race and help the human race to fight demons. Recently many alchemists have been assassinated, and a senior clan of the Carlo Federal Alchemists Association was swept. According to our investigations, these actions were done by Three-Eye Association. As you are much more valuable than a common senior alchemist, Three-Eye Association will definitely try to find a way to get rid of you. Thanks for your warning, senior. I will take care of myself. After the Jin clan's real status is exposed, Three-Eye Association will be in the thick of the storm. They might be lurking for a while more. Therefore, you should still be safe for a short period of time. If you agree, our clan can assign powerhouses to protect you. I think the best protection is to disappear. I prefer if nobody can find me, or if Three-Eye Association just thinks that getting rid of me is not worth the trouble. I will deal with it myself. Zhang Tai considered for a short while before he refused the senior's help. 1 minute later, Zhang Tai left the senior's room with a calm look. To tell the truth, the Zhang clan's punishment to him for bringing outsiders into Heaven's cold city was fair. Zhang Tai wasn't grateful or resentful towards the Zhang clan for the punishment. Instead, he thought he deserved the punishment. However, through this he felt an invisible chasm between him and those big figures, which also existed between him and Huayuan Palace. This chasm was not caused by interest disputes, but purely the differences in values and worldviews. The big figures' distant attitude towards small figures and average people from the event in Heaven's cold city made Zhang Tai very uncomfortable. If the Central States Alliance or Huayuan Palace could make a detailed announcement about the coming Holy War, they'd spare time for commoners to prepare and they might be able to save the lives of hundreds of millions of people. However, Zhang Tai knew that he was dreaming. When he left the senior's room, Zhang Tai recalled the faces of his friends still in Black Hot City and Bulapii, Barley, Owen, Doug, Hista, Baghdad, Leet, Alice, Beverly, Hannah, Girls of Rose Association and Miss Dana. Zhang Tai knew that these people were the ants that would be flushed away by the flood. During the long holy war, their lives had become trivial. If they could survive the holy war, it meant they were lucky. However, if not, it was nothing strange. Even though the holy war was coming, nobody felt it was necessary to notice them at all. This made Zhang Tai uncomfortable and furious. After that, Zhang Tai saw Lan Yunqi in the airship. A few days before, Zhang Tai had heard that Lan Yunqi forcefully triggered her ancestral bloodline and killed 3 powerhouses of the Zhen clan who were above level 10 when she assaulted Heaven's Cold City. Because of this, her primordial qi was heavily weakened. She needed to recuperate for a period. Therefore, she left the battlefield from then on. Zhang Tai had seen many people to inquire about her whereabouts, yet nobody knew where she had gone. He even thought that Lan Yunqi had returned to Huayuan Palace for recuperation. Therefore, Zhang Tai was a bit amazed at the sight of Lan Yunqi in the airship. She was followed by a man who was over 20 years old. With sword-like eyebrows and sparkling eyes, the man was as white as jade. He was robust and tall in a blue silk warrior's robe. A long sword was hanging at his waist. What a handsome guy. Walking together with Lan Yunqi, the man was not overwhelmed by Lan Yunqi's qi field at all. Instead, he kept laughing and jesting with Lan Yunqi. Zhang Tai passed by them calmly without even glancing at them. When she brushed past Zhang Tai's shoulder, Lan Yunqi peered at him and slightly bit her lip instead of saying anything. In contrast, the man completely ignored Zhang Tai. Younger sister Shi, here's the Jade Marrow Primordial Qi Recovery Ointment. I had my man bring this from Zhang Tai family in Qinghua Mountain by airship. I hope it can help you recuperate as soon as possible. After he'd walked 2 steps away from them, Zhang Tai heard the man's voice. He then clenched his fist and felt jealous inside. 5 minutes later, Zhang Tai accepted his punishment in the open square of the camp of Hidden Dragon Palace, which aroused the attention of many people. Zhang Tai, student of Hidden Dragon Palace, brought outsiders into Heaven's Cold City privately by playing favoritism. As punishment, all the clan contribution points that he gained through joining the action of assaulting Heaven's Cold City were cancelled. Additionally, he will suffer 100 whips. A military inspector of Huayuan Palace declared Zhang Tai guilty after glancing over the onlookers. He then ordered a soldier to execute the punishment on Zhang Tai. Hearing this, all the onlookers exchanged glances with each other. Zhang Tai's performance in Heaven's Cold City in the last few days was very outstanding, which brought him a good reputation. However, it was really beyond everyone's imagination that he could suffer such a punishment. Therefore, everybody just watched silently. A 2-meter-high pile of wood was fixed on the ground in front of Zhang Tai. An iron chain was fixed on the wood pile, which was used to handcuff the offender's hands. The soldier then walked towards Zhang Tai and wanted to fix Zhang Tai's hands onto the wood pile. I will stand still right here, just whip. Zhang Tai took off his shirt, exposing his robust back. The whip in the army is no joke. It's a dragon whip made of the large tendons of mutated killer whales and steel wires. An average person would pass out with only 3 whips. I suggest you to respect this whip. Otherwise, you might lose your honor in public. I respect you as a tough guy considering your excellent performance in Heaven's Cold City recently, therefore, I am warning you about this. The inspector murmured to Zhang Tai. Thanks, no need. I want to know whether the whips of Huayuan Palace can wake me up a bit. After saying this, Zhang Tai smiled at Ma Yun and the other girls who had concerned looks. After another glance at Zhang Tai, the inspector moved back as he nodded towards a muscular, barebacked, tough-looking guy who was holding a whip and preparing to execute the punishment. The tough guy then opened a rosewood box on his side and took out a black whip, which was as thick as a kid's arm. He then raised the whip in the air to show it around to the onlookers. After that, he dipped the whip in the water barrel before he pulled it out. After that, he slapped it towards Zhang Tai's back. With an air-breaking sound, see. He lashed the whip onto Zhang Tai's back, producing a crispy sound, pa. Hearing that sound, all the onlookers felt their hair stand on end. Although he had a blood stain on his back, Zhang Tai was still standing there as firm as an iron pillar with the exception of a slight frown. After slashing Zhang Tai with the whip, the tough man found that Zhang Tai didn't respond at all. He then moved his whip in front of his eyes to check whether or not it was broken. After finding no problem with the whip, he continued. Pa. 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 In a wink, the tough guy had lashed over 20 whips. Not only did the onlookers change their looks, but even the executor changed his facial expression. Such a whip could even leave a mark on a rock, not to mention a person. However, Zhang Tai just stood there, still as a statue. The muscles on his back didn't even twitch a bit. At the beginning, Zhang Tai would slightly frown after each lash. However, after 10 lashes, he wouldn't even frown a bit. Instead, he looked calm after each lash. The onlookers had never seen a person who could stand more than 20 dragon whips without even moving a bit. They had not even heard of such a thing before. More and more people came to watch, not only those from Hidden Dragon Palace, even many soldiers from Hurricane Army and Breaking Sun Army of Huayuan Palace had arrived. At the sight of Zhang Tai's performance they were all stunned. After lashing the whip more than 10 times with his full strength, the tough guy started to pant slightly. Harder, have you eaten food? This is no fun. Change to another executor. Zhang Tai roared. The moment he shouted, someone among the crowd instantly yelled, "Tough guy." With a solemn face, the inspector walked over. He took the whip and started to lash it onto Zhang Tai's back, causing a shrill, air-cutting and cracking sound on his back. Then, gradually, all the onlookers started to count for him loudly. 58. 59. 60. The sound of counting grew louder and louder, which even aroused the attention of people far away. Hearing the increasingly louder yells outside the airship, the senior of Huayuan Palace, who was tasting tea calmly in his room, frowned. He walked towards the window and looked outside. Because the body of the airship was very high, the senior noticed Zhang Tai, who was standing still like an iron pillar and suffering from the punishment. At this moment another man also walked towards the window in the room and watched. What a pity. Watching Zhang Tai being lashed, he shook his head slightly. This young man is too merciful. Since he experienced the assassination on Hidden Dragon Island, I feel he's always estranged himself from Huayuan Palace on purpose. It's normal. After all, he's new in Huayuan Palace and has no strong background. For a young man who was to be assassinated by a guard arranged by the clan, he is already brave enough to keep the previous partnership with Long Wind Business Group and stay on Hidden Dragon Island. Although having scolded Zhang Tai just now, the senior started to appreciate him at this moment. I think that Huayuan Palace should master the manufacturing method of all-purpose medicament. If this young man encounters a worse situation, I'm afraid that nobody else will be able to produce it anymore. For the sake of the Zhang clan, it's not a good thing for him or Huayuan Palace if all-purpose medicament is under the control of this young man. This is nothing different than a baby holding a treasure passing through the boisterous market. 1. The senior of Huayuan Palace then smiled proudly. The reason Huayuan Palace is so powerful is not because of a small bottle of medicament. No matter what, the manufacturing method of all-purpose medicament is in the hands of Lord Huayuan's descendant. That's enough. If Huayuan Palace forces or cheats him into submitting the manufacturing method for all-purpose medicament, it would ruin the cohesiveness of the clan members. If so, do you think that Huayuan Palace can survive this holy war, considering the powerful capabilities of those people who cast their greedy eyes on Huayuan Palace? It's really pitiful. That man sighed as he watched Zhang Tai from afar. If this boy could be a bit more docile, he would become another ferocious general in Huayuan Palace in a couple of years. But now, I feel this brat is not completely standing in line with Huayuan Palace. As he dares to take outsiders into Heaven's Cold City privately and violates the rules of Huayuan Palace, he might do something more excessive in the future. Additionally, I'm afraid that he will not help Huayuan Palace do anything after the 100 whips. No matter who he is, as long as he violates the rules of Huayuan Palace, he should be punished. In future, as long as he doesn't betray Huayuan Palace, defame his ancestors or impact the interests of Huayuan Palace, just take him as a freak. Oh, what about that investigation? We've confirmed that this brat has nothing to do with that event. First, he's not able to do that, especially considering the many people in the conference room of the Jin clan mansion. He would not be able to kill them all in a short period before some of them even moved a bit. Second, he was drinking with his friends in Jinwu Castle until midnight that night. On the second day, he was still on Hidden Dragon Island. Unless he could fly, he could not swim over 1,000 miles overnight to do this. Additionally, no airships or ships were recorded as leaving Hidden Dragon Island that night, neither on the next morning. Last but not least, how could he know about Jin's arrangement in Huayuan Palace? When the Jin clan was scheming about Huayuan Palace, he was still in Black Hot City. Therefore, we've confirmed that another powerhouse who cultivated Ironblood Fist must have been involved with the event in the Jin clan mansion. Who could that guy be? The senior of Huayuan Palace also frowned. In another room of the airship, Lan Yunqi watched Zhang Tai from afar as her face started to turn pale gradually. 97. 98. 99. 100. With the last cracking sound, the yells among the crowd stopped. Then, the onlookers became quiet. Everybody was gazing at Zhang Tai. At this moment, Ma Ayun and the other girls who got along well with Zhang Tai ran over, full of tears. Yuanzi took out wound medicine and started to rub it over Zhang Tai's back. At the same time, Gu Kaidai had brought Zhang Tai's coat over and put it on for him. However, Zhang Tai kept watching the clouds in the sky, which looked like ants and robust dragons. The 100 whips really woke him up. Just now, among the ever-terrifying pain, his mind was unprecedentedly clear. Watching the clouds in the sky, he thought through many things. Zhang Tai, are you okay? Asked Ma Ayun. Finding Zhang Tai absent-minded, she touched his forehead out of concern. She was afraid that Zhang Tai was driven mad by the whips. Senior sister Ma, I'm okay. Zhang Tai grinned with a big smile. At the sight of Zhang Tai's smile, Ma Ayun finally felt reassured. When he was being lashed just now, Zhang Tai didn't feel pain at all. However, after the punishment was over, when he moved his hand intending to pull out something from his bag, he felt his whole body had been cut into pieces, which made his face twist slightly. What do you want? I'll help you. Ma Ayun pressed Zhang Tai's hand. Do you want all-purpose medicament? No, it's my purse. Zhang Tai answered as he gasped, Senior Sister Ma, please take out my purse and help me buy meat and alcohol from the logistics division for 150 people. You still think about eating and drinking? Ma Ayun popped her eyes out at once. I promised some cavalry brothers in Taisher clan I'd drink with them tonight. I cannot eat my words. You come together with me. Don't forget to call Lu Su, Wei Wu and Lu Yunfei when they come back, just to see me off. What? You want to go? Hearing Zhang Tai's words, Yuan Zi, who was rubbing medicine over Zhang Tai's back, suddenly shook her hand, causing Zhang Tai to frown once again. Zhang Tai then nodded, I feel it's not proper for me to stay here any longer. After saying this, Zhang Tai saw the girls' faces turn ashen at the same time. Soon after that, Zhang Tai revealed a sunny smile as he lowered his voice and murmured with a sneaky look, Are you wanting to see me raising my buttocks on the bed, my senior sisters? I don't know whether that gesture is sexy or not. If you really want to have a look, come for me in Jinwu Castle silently. I will show it to you for free, either with pants or not. Having felt like crying just before, Yuanzi instantly burst out laughing. As she wasn't being careful about the force from her hands, Zhang Tai uttered a groundbreaking, miserable shriek at once as he almost jumped up, Arg, D***mn, lighter please. The onlookers who had intended to move closer to him instantly stopped after hearing Zhang Tai's shrill shriek like a pig being slaughtered. They then exchanged glances with each other and questioned to themselves, where's that tough guy? How come that tough guy disappeared after being lashed? Was he pretending just now? Why not pretend a bit longer? Why so embarrassing now? That night, Zhang Tai, Taisher Ci, Lu Su, Yang Yuan Kong, Ma Ayun and some cavalry brothers of Taisher clan sat around bonfires and drunk until midnight. After Zhang Tai returned to his tent in a half-cocked way, a shadow drilled into his tent. Senior Sisma. Zhang Tai became awake immediately. However, his mouth had been blocked by a hot face. What a nice wet dream. Chapter 380, A Strange Place. On the tranquil sea with tender waves an old wooden trawler longer than 30 m was wobbling harshly. The lacquer on the body of the trawler below the drafting line almost faded away. The ear-splitting sound of the steam engines in the engine room also indicated that the working condition of the most important machine in the trawler had been much worse than before, like an old ox who was still pulling an ox cart and climbing the slope. A flock of jaegers was following after this trawler. Having been living in the sea area for a long time, these jaegers knew that when sailors hauled their nets, they would throw small-sized sardines and parents back into the sea. Those jaegers would enjoy their meal at that moment. If sailors had a nice mood, they would even throw the fish and prawns into the air. Seeing this, those jaegers would directly bite them in the air as if performing acrobatic stunts. The jaegers had already followed after this obsolete trawler for a whole morning, during which period, the sailors cast their net 6 times, 2 of which had nice gains which the jaegers also enjoyed. At this moment, a greater part of the fish hold had been filled with fish and prawns. With tons more weight, the old ox-like engine uttered a more jarring sound. Besides, even the jaegers in the sky started to tweet loudly. "Boss, just cast the net. Even those jaegers can't wait anymore." A sailor shouted loudly. Beside the shipboard, a middle-aged tough man whose face had been full of wrinkles due to the long-term effect of sea wind was holding a tobacco pipe in the mouth. He was gazing at the seawater attentively, wanting to see through the sea water. After hearing the sailor scream, he raised his eyes towards the sky before waving his robust arm forcefully and sent the order loudly, "Cast the net. After hauling this net, we will go back home." Seeing his gesture, all the sailors started to cast the well-arranged net into the sea by sections from the stern of the trawler. The man being called boss then came to the cab from the shipboard and told to the helmsman, "Mond, starboard the helm. I feel ocean currents under the sea. Those silver-headed spotted fish always like to follow ocean currents." "Yes, sir." The helmsman then turned around to check whether those sailors had finished casting their net. The moment they finished doing that, the helmsman had started to starboard the helm to steer the trawler towards the right. The boss then came onto the deck to watch the buoys on the net together with the sailors. "Boss, Pike 1 is too old. It has almost run for 10 years. Why not get a new one for us?" "Yes, it's such an unprecedented good market recently. Any seafood would be sold out the moment they reach the market. Those purchasers from canning factories in the downtown are squatting in the wharf every day. As long as they see us, they would charge at us like that we were beauties. We begged them before, but now, it's the complete opposite. I was told that those canning factories really had good business nowadays. They work overtime every day. There are so many orders that they just can't deal with them all. When I was in the tavern, I was told by a sailor that it was pretty chaotic on the continent recently. It seems like war will break out soon. A city might have been destroyed by demons while all the commoners inside had been killed. So what? We have money to make. But 2 months later when the sea freezes, we will not able to head out anymore, otherwise, we would make more money." The sailors talked before hauling the net. By contrast, the boss still held his tobacco pipe in the mouth with his eyes fixed on the stern. He was imagining a beautiful new steel trawler. Of course, he had also thought about buying a new trawler like what those sailors had suggested. He had ordered a new trawler from Minsk shipyard. He found an old friend who could help him get his new trawler in September without having to queue up. Now, shipyards also had a good business. Additionally, the prices of the fishers manufactured by those shipyards also rose up like those canned fish. Thinking of the 1,800-odd gold coins, the price of the new trawler that he had paid for in advance, the boss felt heartache for a while. 1 month ago, the price of another steel trawler longer than 50 m and weighing 460 tons was only 1,500 odd gold coins. He had been considering changing trawlers at that time. However, he hesitated and decided to change next year. Therefore, he missed the best purchasing opportunity. As a result, he had to pay 20% more this time. After he finished his smoke, the boss knocked his tobacco pipe, which was made of whale's bone, on the shipboard and sent another order: "Now, haul the net." Receiving the order, the sailors immediately started to rotate the capstan at the stern to haul the net out of the sea. This time, the boss's face turned gloomy. The easier the sailors rotate the capstan, the fewer they gained. Finally, they got no fish at all, even a prawn. What was more, they found a tidy hole whose diameter was greater than 2 m at the bottom of the net. Squatting around the net, the boss and those sailors started to check the mysterious hole carefully. "Is it a magical beast in the sea?" a sailor asked while his teeth started to quiver. "Impossible. If it's a magical beast, it would take a great strength for it to make such a hole, and we should have sensed that." Another more experienced sailor waved his head. The boss then rubbed the broken net and took the broken fish lines and started to observe them carefully. The end of the lines was tidy, just like having been cut by a sharp weapon, making it very mysterious. Not only the boss had noticed that, even those sailors had found it. What could cause such damage in the sea? What if that thing targets at this trawler? Thinking of this, everybody felt a chill inside while those sailors moved their eyes onto the boss. "As we've gained a lot today, it's time to go back." Hearing this, everybody felt they'd been relieved of a heavy burden. The pike then turned around and drove towards the north. After sailing for half a day, the trawler finally drove into a boisterous fish pier on Kaya Island, which was filled with fishers at dusk. After ensuring they were safe on the wharf, everybody let out a sigh. When they landed, their haul was soon sold out. After 1 day's work, Pike brought over 90 silver coins to the boss, which was much higher than that 1 month ago. After receiving their salaries, those sailors left jubilantly. The boss directly called a trailer to carry away that broken net to mend it up overnight, otherwise, they would not able to set sail tomorrow. Several hours later, as those fishers had come back consecutively and sold out their fishes and prawns, few people were left on the pier. When the last purchasers from canning factories left after midnight, the whole fish pier became quiet, except for the surging sea waves. At this moment, a black figure showed his head above the sea at the stern of the pike like a legendary water ghost. Without making any sound, he then grabbed the shipboard and jumped on board the trawler. After that, the shadow came outside the door of the crew modules on the trawler. With a slight twist, he had broken the tiny lock, causing a light sound, caw. 3 minutes later, that shadow changed into a tidy set of sailors' clothes and left the fish pier quickly. Although there were no roadside lamps on the streets in this city, it didn't influence Zhang Tie's actions at all, as he had night vision. Walking on the streets, Zhang Tai glanced here and there out of curiosity. There were no tall buildings in this city. Almost all the buildings were lower than 6 stories with pinnacles or slopes on top. Most of their exterior walls were white, beige or a light wood color. Additionally, the most original textures of the woods and stones which were used to build buildings were preserved, making them natural, concise, firm and massive. Almost no tall chimneys like those in Black Hot City could be seen in the city. No traces left by trolley vehicles on the ground either. Only a few buses were parking on 2 sides of the streets. All this indicated that this was a city with poor industry. For Zhang Tai, this was absolutely a strange place. After arranging everything in Huaiyuan Prefecture and Hidden Dragon Island, Zhang Tai had left Hidden Dragon Island 3 days ago. Nobody knew where he was heading. Even Zhang Tai was not sure where to go. He only had one general target in his mind: the sea area in the north of Wei subcontinent.